You give us sincerity. They give us authenticity. Lord, we pray for your guidance and your leadership from the big things to the small things. And we thank you that you are the God of this city. We thank you that everyone that's in this room is unconditionally and unwaveringly loved by you. So, Lord, let us rest in that reality and be emboldened and excited and enthralled and enthused by the grace you've given us and the opportunity we have relationship with you because of Jesus. So thank you, Lord. We love you. Thank you for first loving us. In the name of your love, in Jesus' name, Lord, amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll now call this meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Director Aaron Holliday.
Here.
Director Phyllis Beard.
Present.
Director Marcia Dobbs-Smith.
Here.
Director Dudley Webb.
Here.
Director Karen Garcia.
Here.
Director Steve Trusty.
Here.
Mayor Pat McCabe.
Here. At this time, we'll consider approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions to the agenda, or items to be moved from consent agenda to new business?
Move approval of the
Got a
agenda.
motion to approve the agenda
Second.
as presented, seconded by Director Webb. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda is adopted. Approved. Consideration of the approval of the minutes of the regularly held meeting of April 18, 2023. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to those minutes as presented? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So
Director
moved.
Trustee, seconded
Second.
by Director Garcia. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Recognition of guests. Any director have guests? You're all our guests. Thank you for coming out. At this time, we'll consider the city manager's report presented by our very own city manager, Mr. Bill Burrow.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. I'd like to start off in thanking some of our departments, solid waste crews, and in helping through our courts with our community service workers. They held the Spring Fling cleanup event this past Saturday and Sunday. They hauled a total of 82 construction containers full of debris, 166.3 tons. They were able to recycle about 7.5 tons of metal. They also had some that were out there collecting metal and putting those on trailers and taking them with them. We let them have that just for their help. But it's a huge undertaking. We had a lot of rain on Saturday. It was a little bit slow, so most of the volumes I just mentioned came on Sunday. But I want to thank them. They work, Monday through Fridays, and then come in and do this event on Saturday and Sunday, and then come back in and work this week. So they're all on about a 12-day stretch, but really appreciate the work they did in helping beautify our community. I want to talk about Arbor Day and our urban forester, Alan Bates. He helped distribute about approximately 930 trees on April the 7th. I'd mentioned that at the last meeting. However, he teamed up with our stormwater team, and on April 25th, they distributed an additional 500 trees to local residents, and that's a huge undertaking for them, and appreciate their work. We've also had another successful Arbor Day event on April the 21st, and about 250 fifth graders from Hot Springs School District got to experience 8 learning stations and various exhibitions at the Entergy Park. That's always a fun event. We've got tree climbers out there. And then there's educational stations. There's about 8 stations that they go through, and just appreciate Alan and all of those that helped make that experience happen. Some really good news coming in from RDOT. They're very close to a pre-construction meeting on some paving that's going to take place on some of our state highways. 70 West Airport Road area. They'll be going from the expressway on Airport Road all the way to Valley Street on East Grand. That also includes that stretch of West Grand, Summer, Hobson, 3rd Street, that little square. So they'll be here paving that. Then they're going to pave Central from Grand to Whittington, which is definitely needed. We appreciate that. And then there's a portion of Malvern from Grand up to about Marie Street. So really good news coming in from RDOT that they're very close on that pre-construction meeting and getting that kicked off. The culvert replacement for Velocity Pump Track there on Valley Street. That's been, it started yesterday. Once that's done, we'll be able to come back in and lay the parking lot for the Velocity Park. That's part of the Phase 1 and Phase 2 for that particular area. Stokes Trail Grant, we submitted the paperwork to receive the TAP grant from the state, which is also an RDOT grant. That is for the first phase of Stokes Trail. Depending on the environmental requirements, we hope to bid that phase out sometime this year. Spring is definitely in the air this week in Hot Springs, but there's no better sign of spring than when we start hanging the flower baskets downtown. That's a huge endeavor by our Parks and Trails team, as well as our master gardeners that help put all of those together. The preparation, hanging, and maintenance of 120 flower baskets will take place with the help of the Master Gardener volunteers I just mentioned, but there's about 400 hours that go into this every year between our staff and that volunteer group. Couldn't do it without them. But we're scheduled to start hanging the baskets on May the 11th, next Thursday. There were 95, another good stat here is on building permits. There were 95 building permits issued by the Planning and Development Department in the month of April, which is 4 fewer than 2022. However, the total valuation nearly doubled, as the 99 and 22 totaled $5.4 million, and in 2023 it's 10.68. This included 72 residential permits at about $4.5 million and 23 non-residential permits at $6.18 million. Among the top non-residential permits were 2 commercial buildings. One is very exciting. Our city attorney and myself got to tour this particular building. It's going to be a beautiful endeavor. It's $2.5 million interior remodel at 150 Creek Street, which is that building right behind 420 Eats on Malvern. At one time, I believe it was Fraser Sales that had beverage sales here in town. But a very, very unique building, a lot of timber on the inside. It's going to turn out to be a really, really nice product. Then a $1.5 million to repurpose 436 Cornerstone Boulevard, and that's going to be a Sportsman Warehouse, so we'll be getting a new sporting goods store here in the city. February sales tax were up 10.45%, which is higher than February of 2022. Year to date, we're sitting at about 9.3%. I did see some news today, so we're going to be optimistic. Saw the state sales tax today had a decline for April of 23.4%. Hopefully we'll not experience that, but I can tell you April was a pretty wet month, so we may see some decline there, but we're in good shape moving into it. Finally, let me mention, is Karen in here with us tonight? Karen Scott? I don't see Karen. Well, I'm going to brag on her and her team. She doesn't even know about this yet, but the Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA, of the United States and Canada has awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting to the City of Hot Springs for its annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021. The report has been judged by an impartial panel to meet the high standards of the program, which includes demonstrating a constructive spirit of full disclosure, to clearly communicate its financial story and motivate potential users and user groups to be able to read the report. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in the area of governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by a government and its management. This is the 29th consecutive year that we've been awarded this particular award, and I can tell you, you think that that's a gimme after 29 years, but it's a serious amount of work, a labor of love that goes into that, and really it is the most transparent document that we have in our finances for the City of Hot Springs. So really appreciate Karen Scott, our finance director, and the team that she has. I think Renee is here, Renee Brewer, and just the whole team at finance. So a lot to be proud of there, and thank you all for your efforts. Mayor, please, my report.
Good report, thank you. Now we'll hear from individual directors regarding upcoming events. Director Webb.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to share with everybody this Thursday, May 4th, is National Day of Prayer. This is an encouragement for all Americans to pray on this day. This year's theme is derived from James 5:16 and is titled Pray Fervently in Righteousness and Avail Much. Again, this Thursday, May 4th, National Day of Prayer. And then also, this Saturday, May 6th, is the City County Cleanup. And for more information or details, you can give me a call at 501-285-5467. Thank you.
Very good. Other announcements? Director Holliday.
Thanks. I just want to remind everyone that we are in the throes of the Arts in the Park Festival. It'll go through this weekend on the 7th. Next weekend's highlights are Gallery Walk, which we do have every first Friday, but it should be a little bit bigger than usual this time around, and also studio tours are this weekend. There's activities every evening and day all the rest of this week, and information is at hotspringsarts.org. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to share with the public that on May 13th at 10:30 in the morning at the Bank of the Ozarks Arena is the graduation for National Park College. And this graduation will include, for the first time ever, through the partnership with Southern Arkansas University, 5 students graduating with a bachelor's degree. And we have good news that the workforce apprentices are being included in the ceremony, and there are 40 apprentices completing their licenses with HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and child development programs. These are all areas of needed employees in our community. They will have 560 students receiving college-level associate degrees and certificates. And among them, 27 Garland County High School students will complete a college-level credential, and 4 receiving an associate degree. And we have 50 through the adult program receiving their high school diploma for the first time. And 5 are completing their certified nursing assistant. And the adult education department offers that CNA program for free. I think that this is outstanding news and proves just how important National Park College is to our community. Additionally, I want to announce that on May 17th, in District 5 at the center at 305 Forest Lakes Boulevard, I am hosting a reception in honor of our new police chief and assistant police chief that you are also invited to. There will be plenty of refreshments for anyone interested. But we want to honor them, and we also will have some community and city updates for those in attendance at the meeting. And lastly, this is a precursor to the 19th when the official pinning of the chiefs, as well as promotions and new officers, occur for the police department at 1 p.m. in Horner Hall on Friday the 19th. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Any further announcements? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. These are items of a routine nature that do not merit individual discussion. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
Well, we got a three-way tie there. I heard the first. Director Dobbs Smith made the motion, seconded by Director Garcia. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda is adopted. We only have 4 items under new business. 3 of them are resolutions, and the final one is an ordinance. And we'll begin with Resolution R-23-93 and ask City Attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-23-93, a resolution declaring certain structures located at 113 Vantage Street a nuisance and condemning same pursuant to Title 17 of the Hot Springs Code. That concludes your reading, Mayor. if you would entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt. Director
So moved.
Trustee made the motion, seconded by
Second.
Director Dobb Smith, and our very own Miss Kathy Solomon, Director of Planning and Development, will provide the staff report. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Both the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code and the International Property Maintenance Code, as adopted by the Hot Springs Property Maintenance Code, address issues of unsafe structures and their condemnation. Condemnation is the final step in what can be a long process and is only used when all other efforts have been exhausted and the owners are unable or unwilling to repair the structures to a condition which is safe and habitable. 113 Vantage is a single-family structure. It is vacant. It's located in District 2. Unsafe conditions at this house include structural damage to the foundation and floor joist, damaged or missing exterior walls, siding, and roofing. And there are damaged or missing windows and doors. In order to serve the owner, Ms. Crawford, the notice of this proceeding, the notice was hand-delivered to her at Quapaw Nursing and Rehabilitation. Due to the unsafe condition of the structure and the owner's inability to make repairs, we are recommending condemnation for the purpose of removing the structure.
Any questions of Ms. Solomon? Director Beard?
Thank you, Mayor. The Mrs. Crawford, she's in the nursing home.
She is.
And that's why you had to hand deliver the notice to her that her house is being condemned.
Yes.
Well, I spoke with her husband. He is on disability. After he pays his rent, utilities, medicine, he has $200 left. He hasn't eaten yet. If he could make a payment plan of $5 a month, it would take him 49 years and 3 months to pay off the debt that he owes on the house. Is there any kind of accommodation or some kind of time that could be bought for them to make arrangements? They don't have, they are struggling. They are trying to restore the house. And I just got to this seat. I've been here 4 months. I think we're in our 7th house for District 2. Seems like a projection of 25 houses by the end of the year and maybe 100 by the end of my term. I'm hitting the panic button, but there isn't one, so I just wanted to share that. Thank you for listening.
I agree that their situation is very unfortunate. And we have been working for an extended period of time with them to restore this house to safe code compliance. And they have been unable to do that. It creates a potential nuisance in the neighborhood. And as always, it is the board's decision whether to proceed with condemnation or to delay it.
Well, does it have to be condemned now? How much time can they have before you have to condemn the house?
The condemnation is before you tonight. The actual demolition of the house will not proceed for a minimum of 30 days. That is an appeal period for them. I'm no happier about this than you are.
Yeah, I'm not happy about this, and I realize that I can't save every house. But I just wonder what District 2 looks like in 4 years minus 100 houses. So if there's anyone out there that has any ideas or any kind of help or knows anything, I just wanted to share that with you all. Thank you.
Director Webb?
Thank you, Mayor. I need some help with the name of this program, but it's my understanding that the city has some program that at one time was in place and maybe still in place to help residents, make payments on water and electricity, their bills on their property. Do we still have that? And could this property owner have enough time to maybe apply for that program? And would that help in his or their ability to pay money back to the city?
It is to help with water, rent, those kind of utilities, but we don't have a program. That program's not going to take care of the infrastructure needs in this particular, home. And I'm going to say, if it's in front of you tonight, we've probably had quite a history of trying to do something with the property, or at least help the owners do something with the property. A lot of times we'll see another family member come in and try to do something with one of the structures, but unfortunately, a lot of times they move out of town and the house just continues to deteriorate to where it gets to a point to where it's unsafe in the neighborhood. Vagrants, animals, other things, and in most cases when we take action, it's because it's already gone. Floor joists are gone, the roof is gone. It's really beyond repair.
2017.
So 6 years.
What does that year represent? 6 years of what?
When we began working with the owners of the building to try to bring it up to code.
Well, if the owners were able to be approved for this program to help with bills, that may free up money to put towards providing a financial payment to address infrastructure, could it not? I mean, yeah, the money from the city would go to pay for their water or electric bill, but that would prevent the property owner from having to pay those bills, which means they've got more money in their pocket maybe to address the infrastructure of their home. You know what I mean?
The structure is vacant.
Hmm.
This is not their primary residence. I didn't realize that she were married. There's no husband listed on the deed.
Thanks for sharing that. That information is new to me. I didn't know the property was vacant.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Director Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor. I believe that we all find it painful when we don't know the resources to refer homeowners to assist them in the financial crisis they find themselves in when you can't maintain your property or your personal residence. And I believe later or at the end of the month, as we've been working towards some way to help with affordable housing, we'll be hearing some report regarding that. And that is one of the things that I'm hopeful that we can ask questions regarding resources to help people with these type needs.
Right. Our housing strategy phase 1 report will be coming to you in person on May 30th.
Thank you.
Director Trustee?
Thank you, Mayor. Kathy, the house is vacant. The utilities are not on in this property, are they? And they haven't been for some time?
No.
And in all likelihood, they could not be reconnected with the pictures that we saw tonight. They
It's
could not.
unlikely.
Unlikely. So it would be major expense to get them back to where the utilities could even be hooked up to get to Director Webb's point. I don't think it's an option. Thank you.
Director Webb?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Was your answer to Director Trustee's question, yes, that the utilities are off on this property?
No one is paying for utilities. They are not active at the home.
Would it take quite a bit of an expense to get the utilities back on based on its condition, current condition?
I can't answer that. I have not been inside the house. I have seen the house and I have seen the photos, but I have not been inside the house, so I would not be in a position to tell you.
You know, the structures like these, and I think we all share Director Beard's, concern with demolition of property, but at the same time, we have entities that will acquire that property, and whether it be Habitat for Humanity or some other entity, and construct a home for a family dwelling. So where there's, where we have demolition, there's sometimes a rebirth on that property as well, and a new structure will appear. I know it's painful for people in a state of one being in a nursing home, and if there is with a husband who's on disability, the ability to restore something is very challenging. And this structure didn't get to this condition overnight. And as City Attorney Brian Albright indicated, it's been since 2017 that we've had a file on this. So it was in a condition to begin the process in 2017, and now it's 2023, and we're here today. So, any further comments or questions, or is any other discussion or any further questions for Ms. Selman? Hearing none, thank you. Any discussion amongst directors? Anybody from the audience sign up?
No, sir.
No.
Anyone here to speak in opposition of a resolution condemning certain property at 113 Vantage Street? 113 Vantage Street. There's none, Mayor.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Director Holliday.
Aye.
Beard.
No.
Dobbs Smith.
Aye.
Webb.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Trustee.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Resolution is adopted. Our next resolution to be considered is Resolution R-23-94, and ask City Attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-23-94, resolution declaring certain structure located at 210 West Maurice a nuisance and condemning same pursuant to Title 17 of the Hot Springs Code. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Dobbs Smith, seconded by Director Webb. Again, a staff report will be provided by Ms. Kathy Selman, Director of Planning and Development.
Thank you. As I just explained, the codes adopted by the Board of Directors address the conditions of unsafe structures and their condemnation. 210 West Maurice is also a vacant single-family structure, also located in District 2. The Planning Department has been working with the owners to bring the structure into compliance since 2011. That condition now warrants action by the board. Unsafe conditions at this address include visible holes in the roof and soffit and fascia. There's missing siding and broken windows. An interior inspection was performed, accompanied by the owners, in October 2021. At that time, it was noted that the holes in the roof have allowed damage to ceilings, walls, and floors. Floor joists were noted to be weakened, and areas of the interior had to be avoided during the inspection to prevent injury. Notices were issued to the owners of the property, Mr. Robert Jones and his granddaughters, Kimberly and Jeanette Jones, all of South Carolina, via certified letters, and all of the signature cards were returned signed. Due to the unsafe condition of the structure and the owner's inability to make repairs, we are recommending condemnation for the purpose of removing the structure. The owners did ask that they be notified of the date of removal should you approve this. They intend to return to Hot Springs and remove a few personal items from inside the house.
Any questions of Ms. Selman from the board members? Director Webb?
Thank you, Mayor. So Ms. Selman, by you just sharing with us that they've agreed to come remove personal items out of the house, are you suggesting too that they're accepting the fate of this being condemned?
They have
Their
not
property?
objected to the
Okay.
condemnation.
Thank you.
Any additional questions from directors? Go ahead.
That's fine.
Any discussion amongst directors? Harmony, anybody sign up to speak?
Anyone here to speak in opposition of a resolution condemning certain structures located at 210 West Maurice Street? 210 West Maurice Street. There's none, Mayor.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Director Beard,
No.
Dobbs Smith,
Aye.
Webb,
Aye.
Garcia,
Aye.
Trustee,
Aye.
Holliday,
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Resolution is adopted. Now we'll consider Resolution R-23-95, and I'll ask City Attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-23-95, a resolution awarding a contract to GovOS Inc. for the annual subscription, software, and services related to short-term rental management, I wish it said residential, compliance and tax collections and distribution, and approving a budget amendment. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion, second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Trustee, seconded by
Second.
Director Holliday. Returning to the podium, Kathy Selman, Director of Planning and Development.
Thank you. This contract will support city activities to track and manage compliance with the city's adopted short-term rental policies and regulations, as well as lodging room rental tax and distribution for Visit Hot Springs. The contract expense will be shared between the city and Visit Hot Springs, with Visit Hot Springs paying 1/3 and the planning department paying the remaining 2/3. GovOS was not the lowest bidder. Upon close review, GovOS offers functionality that exceeds the other responding bidder. They offer availability of real-time compliance data with 99% historical accuracy compared to Deckard's stated 95%. GovOS allows a multiple property owner to enter profile data only once. Deckard does not. And critically, GovOS provides custom configured 24/7, 365 operator scripts, meaning that a live hotline operator will verify each complaint is directed immediately to either the emergency contact or to the police department as defined for each type of complaint. Thank you.
Very good. Any questions of Ms. Selman on this item? Thank you. Do we have anybody who signed up to speak?
No, sir.
Any discussion amongst directors? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Dobbs Smith,
Aye.
Webb,
Aye.
Garcia,
Aye.
Trustee,
Aye.
Holliday,
Aye.
Beard,
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Resolution is adopted. Our last action item of the evening is to consider ordinance O-23-10. And I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules to read by title only.
So moved.
Director Webb, seconded by
Second.
Director Trustee. Have a motion and a second to suspend the rules to read by title only. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Council, please read by title.
Ordinance O-23-10, an ordinance amending PD, plan development zoning at 360 Lakeland Drive to add recreational vehicle park and usual and customary accessory uses to the PD approved uses, adopting a regulatory PD site plan and for other purposes. That concludes the reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Motion to adopt. Director Webb, seconded by
Second.
Director Holliday. And for her final appearance at the podium, Ms. Kathy Selman, Director of Planning Development.
That sounds ominous. Thank you. This application raises two questions for the board. Whether to add RV park as a permitted use for the 360 Lakeland PD, and then approving a site plan to regulate how the site should best be arranged to enable the RV park use. This is on 4.2 acres, currently known as Shorecrest Lake Cottage Rentals. It has 330 linear feet of frontage along Lakeland Drive and 426 feet of frontage on Lake Hamilton. Hot Springs Code defines recreational vehicle, or RV, as a self-propelled or towed temporary living quarters equipped with a minimum of bed and cooking facilities. Hot Springs Code does not define RV park, but Wikipedia does. It says that that is a place where people with recreational vehicles can stay overnight or longer in allotted spaces known as sites or campsites. The zoning code does not state a unit of time defining temporary living, but other regulations employed by the city and the state refer to longer term as longer than 30 days. 24 residential structures and 1 office maintenance building in various states of disrepair exist on site. Most are not visible from Lakeland Drive. None are under warning or citation by the city's Neighborhood Services Unit, and no one appears to live there at this time. This is a mix of small, single-family cottages and multi-tenant buildings, about 31 units. Again, they're on the rear half of the property toward the lake. Current access to the site for vehicles is by means of 2 existing driveways from Lakeland Drive. Bordering this property on the east and west is also planned development zoning. Residential Lake RL zoning is to the north, and Lake Hamilton is to the south, and that, of course, is not zoned. Surrounding and nearby land uses include single-family residential, condominium, mobile home park, apartment complex, and commercial marina and boat storage. This property was part of a large area annexed into the city known as Area B. The property was assigned PD, Plan Development Zoning, at the time of annexation by the Board of Directors. That was in 2018. The existing built environment and uses on the site were accepted as the de facto plan development uses and site plan at time of annexation. For each PD zone in Area B, typically, a PD zone requires a detailed site plan. Development has to follow that site plan exactly. And once approved, the site plan becomes a zoning district of its own by city ordinance in the same manner as any other zoning parcel. Some of the PD zones in Area B had approved site plans, but others did not. PD allows for existing developments that cannot be categorized easily into a specific zone district to be deemed conforming. In the situation of a developed area without a site plan, such as 360 Lakeland, the existing development pattern, as it's built, itself assumes the role of a de facto PD site plan. Okay. We've talked about the fact that this is both a text amendment, adding a use, and a PD site plan amendment. This request would develop and operate a 33-space recreational vehicle park within a specific and regulatory site plan. Development would also contain an accessory building or a couple of accessory buildings and 2 future open-air pavilions. All the existing structures on the property are to be raised and removed. Significant site modification would remove the existing hill between Lakeland Drive and the lake. Each site would have a patio and parking space. The park will not have an on-site office, and for the purposes of checking tenants in and out, that would occur at the applicant's current office at 174 Cornerstone Court. The park proposes to reduce the access points from 2, as we have today, to a single point of access with a wrought iron gate to be located in the middle of the property's frontage. And that gate is to be open from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. The internal drives within the development will be private. Maintenance will be the responsibility of the property owner and not of the city. The applicant has obtained shoreline activity permits from Entergy for the planned boat ramp and for a retaining wall at Lake Hamilton. The landscape plan includes introduction of ground covers, turf grass, flagstone, riprap, trees, and shrubs. Privacy fencing and the use of landscaping is proposed to separate the property from neighbors, and it will use both city water and sewer. An updated site plan has been submitted. The revised site plan addresses neighborhood testimony as well as Planning Commission's 9 conditions. City engineer Gary Carnahan has consulted numerous times with Mr. Matthews, and a final revised site plan is now available. The revisions on that revised site plan include a wider entryway with softer turn radii, moving the gate farther into the site from Lakeland Drive, providing a privacy fence along the western segment of the lakeshore frontage, relocating the dump facility away from the neighboring property line, adding 2 restrooms, reducing stormwater runoff to Lakeland by regrading most of the site toward Lake Hamilton, and installing a privacy fence as dictated by Planning Commission without barbed wire. It is unusual to entertain plan revisions in the interim between Planning Commission's recommendation with conditions to approve and board consideration. However, the revisions directly seek to correct prior identified site plan deficiencies as well as Planning Commission's 9 proposed conditions. The revisions do not change either the proposed use of RV park, the access location from Lakeland, or internal circulation. The revised site plans are included and referenced for board approval in the packet that you received. Most of the revisions apply to technical standards, including improved stormwater drainage and vehicle ingress and egress. City engineer Gary Carnahan's detailed review comments appeared in your packet as well. The finding to Planning Commission was that the project and development plan comply with the requirements of Hot Springs Code, and the staff report recommendation to Planning Commission was for approval with conditions, because when those conditions are applied, the application would comply with Hot Springs Code 16247. Planning Commission duly advertised and conducted a regular meeting on April 13th, at which 8 of 10 speakers expressed opposition. There were numerous written comments in opposition received as well. The nature of those comments in opposition were that the RV park was a great idea, but not in that neighborhood, lack of infrastructure, heavy vehicles, possibly damaging roads, pedestrian safety on roadways, accessibility, that the current use is unmaintained, that there was an east-west pinch point, citation of a Kent State study about wind momentum overturning large and high-profile vehicles, that there is only one way in and one way out for 1,000 people on the peninsula via Lakeland, that the turn radius into the site was not adequate for large vehicles, that roadways should be concrete or they would crumble, that there is a need for zoning out RV parks and neighborhoods. A dedicated turn lane is needed at the entrance to the site. A desire for a mandatory on-site manager. Opposition to a 4-foot barbed wire fence. The energy shoreline activity permit was stated to be old. That this should have annual inspections like a short-term rental. That this was not a high-quality urban design. That 13 months of current ownership has brought no improvement. That the applicant should pay for neighborhood infrastructure improvement. Bikes, pedestrians, and dogs on Lakeland could be endangered, as could fishermen on the causeway. Lakeland Drive, 2 lanes, is too narrow, and that flooding from the site onto Lakeland and into the lake would increase. After considering the record prior to and during the meeting and hearing testimony, Planning Commission voted 7-1, with Commissioner Erickson stating that the proposal was not consistent with planning and development initiatives. The 7-1 recommendation was that the Board of Directors approve an ordinance amending the 360 Lakeland PD uses and the site plan with the staff report findings or recommendations, including 8 original conditions and adding a 9th one to address not having barbed wire along the site perimeter. Regarding Planning Commissioner Erickson's comment as to incompatibility, the application shows removal of more than 20 feet of a hill in the center of the subject property. Forward Hot Springs 2040, the adopted comprehensive plan, does establish a vision for environmental protection corridors along the lakeshore, among other locations, stating that along lakes, we should seek to minimize site disturbance associated with overlock grading, and also to reduce impervious surfaces and use permeable paving systems. Forward Hot Springs 2040 is an aspirational document. The current efforts to revise our Hot Springs Code, which is known as Code Forward, to revise our zoning and development regulations to implement Forward Hot Springs 2040 are underway, but at this time, Hot Springs regulations do not limit site disturbance along the lakeshore. So, in conclusion, the latest revised PD site plan fully addresses Planning Commission conditions number 2 and number 9. The ordinance now reflects 7 ongoing conditions because Planning Commission's approval conditions number 2 and number 9 now have been resolved by the revised plan development site plan. The revised plan development site plan will become regulatory if approved by the board. Planning Commission's recommendation is to approve an ordinance with conditions to permit an RV park as a use, subject to a regulatory site plan, and in this case, the revised site plan. I think that pretty much covers it, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, but there are many, many people here to help you with this decision.
Director Garcia.
I just have a couple of questions for, to make sure I understood a couple of comments. What did you say the long-term use was for this area? Didn't you say the long-term map you mentioned?
No, I did not.
And you did mention the 2040 plan and Code Forward. When was the 2040, when was that forward plan approved?
It was approved during COVID.
During, was that 2019?
I believe it was 2020 or even possibly 2021. The plan activities were primarily in late 19.
In public input.
Tons of it, yep.
It's input from everyone that wanted to participate, and we had a large number, and they made their views known, and the City Board of Directors adopted that and have since been requesting for it to be added to our code. And as you mentioned, that's in the process, but it has not been adopted. But the plan is to adopt it as we can in phases because of the technicalities of getting the writing and everything that's needed in the code.
Right.
But it has been adopted as the board's approval, that is the board's view of how we want the code to be reflected in the future.
It is the board's adopted policy document.
Thank you.
Any additional questions of Ms. Selman? Director Holliday?
Yeah, a quick point of clarification, just to make sure, because this is a planned development as opposed to any other type of zoning, the use plays into that. So some concerns about this possibly turning into a mobile home park, that is not possible because it's a PD, it's an RV park.
It's an
or
RV
camping.
park.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? Director Webb?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm looking at the statute for plan development, 16-2-47. Is this the current statute, Ms. Selman, for plan development?
It is the current code, yes.
States here, the planning commission shall consider a PD proposal only if it meets one of the following threshold criteria. Which one of the following criteria out of the 5 that are presented here did the planning commission say that this proposal met?
None, because the PD zoning is already on this land. That set of criteria is to be used when someone proposes to change from a non-PD to a PD zone. And the change from a regular or straight zone, as we usually call it, requires a finding that there be one of those 5 things present to make it a PD zone. However, because this was zoned post-annexation of Area B, this PD zone was placed on the land for the purpose of not creating nonconformity of a very unusual site.
Thank you. So based on what you're saying here, due to the annexation that took place in 2016, this was grandfathered in as PD?
It was not grandfathered in. The board made a specific vote to adopt initial zoning for the area that was annexed. It all came in as R1.
Any additional questions? I have one on page 44. At the bottom of page 44, there's post-planning commission site plan revisions. The last dot there says the plan has already included this, but this has the word I will mention. The eastbound lane of Lakeland Drive will be widened to 14 feet from center line to back of curb. So we're only widening the inbound lane and not the outbound lane? Or?
That is the recommendation that came through the development review, yes.
And
that will be the responsibility of the applicant to construct that.
So we'll have apparently a wider lane of traffic to get in, but the same width going out without curb and gutter on the, I guess it'd be the westbound lane.
That's right.
And that would lead to the present property, or perhaps just a little bit beyond.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, I mean, where does it stop?
Where does what stop?
The widening of the street.
Along the frontage of the road in front of this property.
In front of the property,
Yeah.
Okay. Director Webb?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm looking at the attachment, Ms. Selman, and this is page 210 of 213. This deals with the preservation plan under the regulations. in your opinion, how does this statute define excessive?
I do not have with me the entire 214 pages. I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Well, is it true that this proposal would remove about a 20-foot hill?
Yes, it is.
Would removing the 20-foot hill be considered excessive or not excessive?
We don't have a standard, so I can't answer that.
I'm reading from you further on down this page under the preservation plan. This statute states that excessive site clearing of topsoil, trees, and natural features before the commencement of building operations shall be discouraged by the Planning Commission. If what we're trying to do is discourage any excessive clearing of topsoil, how do we make a subjective measurement, or how do we take a subjective reading of this to make an objective measurement as to what's excessive?
That's why we're revising the code, so
Okay.
that those things can be assigned metrics, and it will be an objective standard that can be used, rather than, just, I like it, I don't like it.
Right.
Yeah.
So from this 20-foot of a hill, would any of that be topsoil, trees, or natural features?
I am not qualified to answer that.
Thank you.
Any additional questions of Ms. Selman?
Just point of clarification, so that you can apply the proper weight to your concern. The 2040 plan is a plan, it is not a statute. You mentioned a statute. A statute is a state enacted law. This is something that the city, by its board, has adopted as a plan to implement going forward to 2040. Just want to clarify.
Director Webb?
Thank you, Mayor. So as we're reading from 16-2-47, what exactly does that curtail? That's part of the 2040 plan?
Okay, that's a different topic. No, what you're reading from now is a city ordinance.
Okay.
Again, not a state law, city ordinance. But your preservation plan that you were asking of her just now is part of the 2040 plan, a policy that hopefully will get enacted as legislation through the city board as an ordinance, not as a statute.
Well, it looks to me, like the preservation plan here is coming from 16-2-47.
In your attachment on page
Yeah,
210?
it's on page 210, yes. 207, page 207 is where this 16-2-47 ordinance starts.
You are correct.
The preservation plan is coming from that ordinance.
You are correct.
Okay, thank you. Moving down to number 8 on this ordinance, this deals with transportation. The vehicle circulation system shall be designed so as to permit smooth traffic flow with minimum hazards to pedestrian traffic. Based on this proposal, would you say that this proposal adheres to that or doesn't? Or if not, have there been any plans to address the potential pedestrian traffic?
This project is intended to address impacts that are created by this project. This project cannot be required to fix an existing problem. So, I don't know if that answers your question. There is a problem on any road without sidewalks for pedestrians. This is a very long road without sidewalks. The pedestrian safety problem in its review by the Development Review Committee, which is multiple city departments, was deemed not to create an increase in hazard to pedestrian safety. The approach that was taken was to require the widening of the inbound lane coming from town, if you will, and that because of the size of vehicles potentially turning into the site, that additional width might be a safer situation, specifically addressing something happening on that site, large vehicles. And as much as we would like to improve pedestrian safety everywhere and have, through your adopted budget, directed significant funding toward construction of new sidewalks, that funding can't cover all deficient areas at once. And it's not constitutional to ask this applicant to improve an existing traffic safety problem.
I don't doubt that there might be, thank you, Ms. Selman, that there might be some existing potential pedestrian problem in this area, but as I envision what an RV park might look like, and RVs coming in to set up shop, they're going to get out of the RV at some point. They're pretty close to a lake. I would just envision many people walking down with a fishing pole, taking the road to go fish off of the lake, and that could, or at least has the potential, not to say it would or wouldn't, but it's got the potential to put more pedestrians on a roadway in that area. And as a result of that, would there be any type of addressment to that potential in this proposal?
There has not been an identified need in that direction by the review team.
Director Garcia?
Just a clarification on your comment about sidewalks, because in developments, we have been requiring sidewalks.
Yes, and this development is being required to build sidewalks.
Okay,
They are, for their full frontage.
yes.
They will be
okay.
doing sidewalks, curb and gutter. And they'll be the only place in that immediate part of Lakeland that will have it.
Yes, but I just wanted that clarification. Thank
Yep.
you.
Any additional questions of Ms. Selman? Thank you. We'll begin with the individuals that signed up to speak. You know, I know that do we have people out in the lobby area that may want to? So we'll give everybody an opportunity if they're outside and we call their name, we'll give them a moment or two to come up. What the board does during these this part of the board meeting is we allow citizens to come forward and speak for approximately 3 minutes, you know, and if you're a little bit long, we'll ask you to, you know, provide a concluding comment. There are 17 individuals that have signed up to speak against the ordinance. We have 4 individuals that have signed up to speak in favor of the ordinance. I recognize one of the individuals speaking for is a legal representative of the applicant. Given the weight of the against to the for, and for the board's understanding of the project, I think it's imperative that, you know, that the legal counsel be allowed to speak, you know, longer than 3 minutes. And then I will ask him to come back at the conclusion if he had any final comments. That's not to show favoritism to the applicant. It's merely to allow the board to hear the detail that they want to provide, and provide any follow-up should there be concerns expressed by other applicants, by other speakers, and to address any concerns that the board might have. So we'll begin, and please recognize, we know that you know, there's always emotion on these issues, and that you know, we really don't want to hear any laughter or heckling or boos or cheers or claps or anything like that. We just want to hear the testimony from the individual presenters. So we'll begin with Mr. Phil Montgomery. Mr. Montgomery, please come forward and restate your name, address, please, and district.
Certainly. Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, Philip Montgomery with the Lacey Law Group, 333 Washita Avenue. I represent Garrett Enterprises, Inc. That's the applicant here tonight. And probably to everyone's pleasure here, despite the open door for extra minutes, I'm going to try my best not to take advantage of that. One thing I wanted to touch on, Ms. Selman pointed out, and I think this is important to underscore, this application process, the application process to receive an approval for a plan development is an extensive process under code. 16247 of Hot Springs Code lays out exactly what needs to be done in order to have a plan development approved. And that includes extensive analysis by the planning department, by the engineers involved in it, not only the city engineer, but then private engineers hired by the applicant itself, and that took place here. And these issues, these concerns that have been raised and that will be raised presumably by 17 others, were raised on the front end of this when this was discussed with the planning department. And it is very important to point out that the planning and development department recommended this plan development. And at the planning commission level, it was approved by a 9-to-1 vote. So it was overwhelmingly approved at the planning commission level. It was recommended by the planning department. And that is as important a fact as anything here tonight. And that's actually a fact that's a real fact and not a fear based on data that just doesn't exist. The main issues that have been raised, and one thing Ms. Thelma pointed out, 16247 points out that in order to get a plan development, one of the issues that the city needs to look at is reduction of slums and issues or items like that. And while that's not required here because this is already a plan development, it does bear noting that there are 31 dilapidated cabins out there. This is not a vacant piece of property in which they're trying to put in an RV park. There are 31 dilapidated cabins, rental cabins out there. And currently there's a high crime rate. Police are called out at all times. Ms. Garrett will address that in further detail. But there's a significant police presence at this property weekly, nightly. I don't know that, but I know there have been over 96 calls just recently out there because of the drug problem. And this RV park, this proposed RV park, would eliminate that problem. Traffic concerns are the main thing that I want to point out. That is one of the issues that is highlighted in the code. That's an issue that has to be raised on the front end. That's one of the issues that the planning and development will look at, that engineers will discuss. There have been extensive plans provided by B&F Engineering, the engineers involved here, for this RV park. And I believe these are attached in your packet here. You probably have these. They have worked with Mr. Carnahan, with the city. They've worked with Ms. Selman's office, and they've developed this plan for this RV park. The RV park takes into account traffic problems, and that's something that planning notes on page 42 of the packet here regarding the traffic concerns. And it states that it does not create undue or unmitigated negative traffic impacts, which is one of the standards under the code. And it states, the project narrative states, the current site is occupied by as many as 10 to 20 vehicles at any given time. Any increase in traffic from the proposed RV park improvements is not expected to create any relative undue or unmitigated negative traffic impacts along Lakeland Drive. It's important again to note there are 31 cabins out there. If these cabins were full of cars, people, there would be significantly more traffic out there than an RV park. And I think that's something that Ms. Selman pointed out at the agenda meeting last week at the very end of her presentation to the board. The issues regarding these traffic concerns, the fears thus far are basically they're not based on studies. They're not based on any empirical data that's been presented or even facts on the ground. They're based on fears or concerns. These facts, this data, is something that has been discussed by the engineers on the front end of this when this project was developed. And these concerns have been addressed through 9 9 conditions, if you will, that have been tied to the ordinance. The RV park is not approved as just go ahead and put in 33 RVs or 33 pads for RVs, but they've been approved under 9 conditions, and all the conditions have been met. And in fact, just recently, more changes have been made to the site plan to address some of these concerns that have been raised. So all of these concerns that have been raised by individuals regarding traffic or whatever else, these are issues that have been addressed by the engineers and are constantly being addressed by the engineers. So the traffic is something that has been addressed. It's been, the concerns have been addressed, if I could say that again. Additionally, you have to take into account what the surrounding features of the community is like. And there is a mobile home park directly next door to the RV park. There is a commercial marina and boat storage facility within shouting distance. I believe it's across the street. And there are beachfront resorts in the area. These are all on the 352 Lakeland Drive is the beachfront resorts. The mobile home park is 356 Lakeland Drive. So they are right next to this project. The project, an RV park, will not stick out like a sore thumb based on what's in that area. And there's already presumably heavy commercial traffic there with boat storage and with a commercial RV or commercial marina, as well as mobile homes that would be moved in and out of the mobile home park. Also, just to finish up this point, the existing infrastructure that's in the area. Mr. Montgomery with BNF can talk more about this, but the plans would involve widening the road, as the mayor has addressed with Ms. Selman, and creating and putting in a gate that would be recessed from the road. So this property would not have a gate right on the road, but they would actually be recessed from Lakeland Drive for access, for ingress and egress. But these issues have all been discussed, negotiated, and dealt with by the fire department, planning, and the engineers for the city and private engineers. And that would include removing the current dilapidated structures that are on the property and removing the significant crime element that's also at the property as well. And that's all I have. I'll pass to the next.
Is there any questions for Mr. Phil Montgomery? Director Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. Will someone from one of the engineers be speaking? I had a question on the plan, so will he be speaking that we ask him or the owner? Who would, not now, I'm just asking, are they
Sure.
going to speak? And at that time, I could ask a question.
Either myself or Keith Matthews will address depending on the question.
Yes,
Yeah,
Mr.
I mean, he signed up to speak, so I'll wait to ask the question of
Yeah.
the plan.
Certainly,
At
the
that
engineering would be way more adept at answering something along those lines than me.
And you mentioned these other compatible areas. How many of those came into the city after the property was annexed?
I don't know the answer to that, honestly.
And you mentioned that these current buildings were dilapidated, so they are not rentable?
It is my understanding, and I don't want to speak out of turn on this, Ms. Garrett can actually answer
Okay,
that more
that's
directly,
fine.
but it's
That's
my understanding
fine.
most are not.
So if because I got some messages from the owner, so if she's going to speak, I'll ask her. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Director Beard.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The houses on Shorecrest, they're dilapidated, but are they still being rented?
Well, there are 33, and Ms. Garrett can speak more intelligently to which ones or how many are rentable and how many are not. One of the issues that they're finding out there, and I can speak to this, is someone will be removed from the home because of crime, drugs, or whatever it is. Drug dealers, there's drug dealers out there, there's significant drug use, and after they get out of jail, they will come back to that area and just move back into the house. Whether they're paying rent or not, or whether it's actually a rentable structure or a structure that should be occupied, many of them are being occupied, and they're constantly having to be run off by the police.
Okay, I'll just ask my question to Mrs. Garrett.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Montgomery? Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Garrett, I don't see your name on the sign-up sheet, but you're welcome to come.
As the applicant, I would be given 5 minutes to speak at the beginning of the meeting.
Do you want to offer any comment? You're certainly welcome.
Okay. Rick Stoddard had emailed and said, as the applicant, I would have 5 minutes at the beginning to get started. If that's incorrect.
Yeah, and please speak in the mic.
Okay.
You got to pull that down. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I'm going to make some clarifications and kind of get through what I wanted to say. Is that better?
Yeah, you just got to get slightly closer. Thank you.
Okay. In a situation like this, with a legislative decision before the board, it's imperative that we separate what is a fact from what is an opinion. Fact number one. Can't hear. I'm right here at the microphone.
Yeah.
Plans for the proposed RV park meets code. It meets the zoning requirements. We have gone above and beyond what the city has asked of us. And the plan was approved by the City Planning Committee by 7-1 vote. Shorecrest already has a PD designation. It was approved by this board during annexation. The property houses 24 structures with 31 cabins. We're asking to change that to 33 RV spots. To be clear, Shorecrest is rentable. Shorecrest is very profitable, just like it is, period. The 31 structures may attract a bad element, however, that element pays their rent. This change is not being done to increase the property's income, and it's going to be costly to us. The only reason we started this was to address the city's concern about the high crime rate on the property. We feel it would improve the neighborhood, and it can be operated as something both we and the city would be proud of. So we would think as we go through this that would be sufficient. But the property owners are up in arms, determined to let opinions on traffic, width of the street, and the layout sway the board's decision. We respect their opinion. However, we aren't responsible for the city's streets, but for our property adjacent to Lakeland Drive, we're installing a 12-foot turn lane with 12-inch curb and gutter back onto our property, not taking city property. RVs have successfully navigated Lakeland for years. Traffic concerns and PDs are to be addressed by the Planning and Development Committee, and again, the RV park met their approval. We repositioned the gate to address the city's one concern on traffic. James and them have met with Gary Carnahan numbers of times to make sure these engineering issues meet what the city has asked of us. Most of our RVs will only move once or twice a month, so the traffic from the park will be significantly less than what is from Shorecrest. Shorecrest is only empty now because we began winding it down during the engineering process, so once we got approval, we could get started without having to face tenants that didn't want to be evicted. However, prior to us voluntarily starting to wind it down, the cottages were full, the traffic as well as the crime was horrendous. Again, the reputation of Shorecrest brings all kinds of unwanted traffic. It has 2 entrances, it's accessible by water. We currently only have 2 cabins rented, but Friday when I went and toured the property, there were 9 vehicles on the property. One of the tenants was at work and one doesn't have a car. So whoever was on their property in those 9 vehicles is the kind of traffic that we have the hardest time getting rid of. If we are allowed to develop the property, we will install a wrought iron fence with a gate to control who enters and exits that property. This alone will decrease traffic and deter crime. As a further improvement to the neighborhood, we will remove the issue with water flowing off our property and ponding on Lakeland Drive. The flooding of the road is a big issue faced by the property owners trying to use the road during heavy storms. It causes more of a delay than an RV driving down the road ever would cause. But for us to solve that problem, the best way to do it is to cut down that hill. It will allow the water to gravity flow to the lake. But as a reminder, here are some of the facts that led us to this point. Heath Galloway, theft and possession of a controlled substance. Ryan Peterson, attempt to deliver controlled substances. To date, his customers and the suppliers frequent that property. Ronnie Palmer, theft by receiving on the property. Her 16-year-old son, Aiden Davis, was shot and killed earlier this year. Fabulous Cole, he stole an SUV while out on bond from theft of receiving. It appears he's back in jail this very week. Trinity Barnes, theft by receiving on the property. Tyrone Goldbold entered a cottage on Shorecrest and shot a resident 6 times and got shot in return. Samantha Sims, cottage was burglarized, 4 guns were stolen and never recovered. Stephen Tuck and Keldred Heavens hid on the property, gave chase to the police, and ultimately rammed a patrol car. Austin Guthrie, firearms charges. The one common denominator of all these is that they've either resided or hung out at Shorecrest for the last 12 months. Keep in mind, these are in addition to the 96 calls to service for the police department in 24 months. Ms. Garcia, when you started, you may not have recognized that this urban blight existed in our district. Now that you do, I would hope that you would be open to embracing this change. Now, of all the people that speak from your district tonight, I think the residential owners that are contiguous to the property, not the RV park, not the mobile home park, but the residents that adjoin that property, that their vote should count the most. And they are here tonight to speak in support of this. I would like to say one last thing before I conclude. Pedestrians are an issue. We can't clean up Lakeland. For where people fish on the causeway, where you see them with the fishing poles, there is a guardrail. They would be well advised to stand between the lake and the guardrail versus standing on the street. So the board has a decision to make, and quite frankly, so do the residents that are getting ready to stand up to object. Please do not hang your hopes on some false hopes that there will ever be patio homes on the property that we own. Come tomorrow, we are prepared to start the preparations for the development of this RV park. Or in the alternative, we will need to reopen Shorecrest and just hope that its future somehow turns out better than the past. We brought the property, it had 31 income-producing structures, and we feel this is the way to allow us to substitute something less crime-ridden, but keep it consistent with the goals that we had. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Garrett? Director Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, and thank you for your email, and you were right. I have been through there a number of times, but it is a blight that I was not visually aware of. I had not seen it. I have now, and I wanted to ask, when you purchased the property in 2021, was it your intent to put in an RV park at that time?
No, ma'am. It was intent for us to continue to operate it the way it was. What we didn't know at that time is that the property had an atrocious reputation. The people that had been allowed to stay there were paying daily. They sell a pill, they do something, and they pay their rent. They were letting them stay for $25 a day. So the people that lived there were not a good group. So we have started to try to clean it up, but it's not, the cabins are old, but it's not the property, it's the reputation that keeps these people coming back and back again. Hell, we have 2 people that live there now. The gentleman that lives next door to it, we've got it boarded up, called, 2 of them have broken into, and people are back sleeping on there. People that were there when they got arrested, they don't have anywhere to go, they come right back there. Their friends were in a place and they put them in there. And so we have tried, and my goodness, the police department and the sheriff's department have tried to help clean this up. But we can't.
Did you talk to planning about short-term rentals for this property?
Yes.
And so that was the initial plan, was
Yes.
to have.
When we bought the property, it came with 30 short-term rental licenses. Going through the inspection, we haven't got them all up to code. PD is a weird thing, so they're in suspense till we get them up to code. And it's our intent to get them up to code. That still isn't going to change the reputation of this piece of property. Criminals know that there's only one sheriff boat on the water. And during the day, they will be on the water. They know the police department does not like to respond to this property at night. The sun goes down, they come on the property.
So how many of these cabins are not up to code?
Well, they haven't been inspected yet, so we'll have to let the inspector tell them. We have started bringing them up to code. We started with the worst stuff. Some of them are on stilts. You know, they had to be propped up. We had to change out a lot of the old copper lines and put in PVC. We've had to fix the plumbing. And when we first started realizing we're going to go a different direction, we kind of stopped. So next on deck is going to be the electrical. They all really need to be rewired. And we plan to do that.
So, but I thought you said that they didn't meet inspection, so you couldn't get,
They came out and gave us time to get them up to code and inspected.
but then you decided not to do that?
Now, we're temporarily holding to see what we're going to do with this here. We don't
Okay.
have any violations, we don't have any citations. We've had crime, but we haven't had anybody cite us for these cabins.
And,
The biggest issue is they're old. I mean, when we say dilapidated, they were built in the early 90s, and they're old.
in your narrative, on your application, you mentioned that, the, RV park serves as a means of affordable housing. Are you then viewing this as being, affordable housing for some people?
No, and I think that was a quote that was taken from RV World. For a lot of people that are now mobile housing, they're working from their home, an RV is a means for them to have a more affordable place for them to live. But they don't necessarily live in this place at the same time. We're going to follow the length of stay rules that whatever the city lays down. That's it. If we're told 30 days, that's all they're going to stay.
So that can be ignored in your application?
Well, it's not necessarily ignored. It's people that live in these, they don't necessarily live in the same park for a long time.
Well, I mean, it was in your application, so
Okay.
that's why I was asking.
So
I had
that's
some
clarified.
questions about your plan, but would that be best addressed?
I don't know. What kind of question?
Well, you have one, you're going to one entrance for the
Correct.
RVs. And in checking with our cities in Arkansas, they typically require 2 exits for the RVs of that number. And although the fire marshal said that this was not required because it's not housing, but we don't have a RV ordinance at this time.
correct.
So, we have to make the decision for safety. If you're having that many units and people living there up to X number of months, does it require the same safety code? And that would be 2 exits
Well, Ms.
for the
Garcia,
RV.
I'm sorry. That's an interesting question. We had 2 on our plans, but through the revisions, through the planning commission with Mr. Carnahan, they asked us to make it 1. The city asked us to have 1 entrance.
Well, I'm asking why we don't have 2 and comparing it. They didn't have a city RV code to go by.
Well, that's a
I'm
question-
looking at getting a code and going through the process, and that's what makes this so difficult for me as a board member. Without something in our code, we're asked to approve an amendment to a PD as well as a site plan, which all the technicalities in that would have already been identified in an RV code that we don't have. So, as your attorney mentioned, to have the amount of analysis that's required in doing that in one meeting becomes quite overwhelming task. And therefore, to cover everything, and to me, public safety is extremely important, that I don't want to have doubts about anything.
Okay, I understand. I think the person that could best answer that question is probably Keith Matthews, but more than likely, it's Gary Carnahan. Was he the one that had us go from 2 to 1?
Where's
I
Gary?
don't know if you're aware, but each project goes through a DRC. the Park-
This is Mr. James Montgomery, BNF Engineering.
What's that mic?
Go ahead.
James.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, every department takes a thorough review of the projects.
I'm very aware of the
Yes, ma'am.
process. Thank you.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Well, if you're aware of the process, you'll be aware that the fire department has to sign off on that.
Yes.
And if you know our fire department, they're not going to sign off on anything that's unsafe.
I mentioned that the fire marshal did say because it isn't housing, that it wasn't required to have 2 entrances. But we don't have an RV code for him to go by for the number. The other cities in Arkansas require 2 when they have this number of RV sites. That was my question, and they do that for safety.
Okay. Well,
And that's very important to me.
yes, ma'am, it should be. It should be to everyone. But I can assure you that what we have done is we've done everything by the book plus some to make sure that this is a quality project and it serves the city of Hot Springs. Not everyone's going to agree. I get that, but from a technical standpoint, I think we have done a good job. And I think our client has been very patient over the last 10 to 12 months to make sure it's a sound product, as we've carefully vetted with the city engineer. And if you know Mr. Carnahan, I know you do.
I know him
He's-
very well.
Yes, ma'am.
And
He's
I
very,
very well respect him.
yes, ma'am, as I do too, and we do as well. And the city's very lucky to have him.
So could I ask you some more questions about the plan?
You can
In
certainly,
addition to that, on the, to the residential property, what, how close, how many feet is it to the closest residential property? I couldn't ascertain that.
There are
Rex,
two houses.
Ms. Garrett, will you just speak into the mic?
Sorry. There are 2 houses immediately contingent to the property. They border, 2 houses borders. On one side and a RV park
But
on the other side.
how many feet will the RV park be from the property lines of the residential properties?
Okay, well, the residential property adjoins our property.
I think she's referring to maybe a pad, how far
Will
would
it
a
be
pad
300 feet, 200 feet?
Is there a setback for any?
What are the setbacks?
Keith, can you answer that question? So kind of it's been a tag to Keith Matthews. He's actually the project engineer.
Yes.
I'm the project manager.
Yes.
And so Keith is one that's probably can best answer that, but
Mr. Mayor, Honorable Council. Now, what is your question?
What are the setbacks for the RV park from the borders, and particularly from the residential properties? Is it 200 feet, 300 feet? I could
Well, the
not.
property lines of our property matches the property line of the adjacent property. As for, there is no defined setback in the code in a PD.
what she's saying is how far is that
Well-
house like to the east there? I don't
This
know
is a
what's
request for a change, and looking at our sister cities' RV codes, they have setbacks required, and particularly from residential properties. So my question is, how far back in this plan are those pads, structures, and parking spaces going to be?
Our concrete pads are gonna average probably 30 feet from the property line. And most of them are gonna be at the bottom of the retaining wall, so they won't be visible on the adjacent property.
How many off-street parking spaces are they for the RV pads?
There's 2 on each one.
There is no off-site parking. Every RV pad will have 2 parking spaces.
I said off-street.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
They all have 2.
I probably did.
And I think it's also maybe important to note that the 2 residents that are adjoin our property line, they're going to speak tonight in support of this. They are closer to Shorecrest cabins than they are to these RVs.
And the space between the RVs with their awnings and everything out will be how far from the next RV pad?
Well, approximately 25 feet.
Okay, okay. And the, between spaces, is there anything like grass or other materials for controlling any of the water and erosion of the soil? Is it going to be grassed and landscaped
Yes, ma'am.
between?
There'll be grass strips between each space, and maybe some room for some shrubbery and some landscaping plantings.
And these questions that I'm asking and your answers, are they in this site plan?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed all of that detailed information. That's why I wrote these down. And I read that about the water runoff being changed towards the lake. What, is there any screening or anything of the waters that just run off into the lake?
Well, it goes
Is there
underground
filters?
in the streets, yeah. There's one point I would like to make, if I may be so bold to do that, is one of the comments that I heard earlier was regarding pedestrian walkways. The center street internally of this project, which abuts approximately half of the spaces, has a dedicated 4-foot wide pedestrian walkway down both sides, from the top of the project all the way down to the bottom of the project, in addition to the 5-foot sidewalk we're putting along Lakeland Drive.
Thank you very much. That was the plan questions I had for it.
Okay. Mr. Montgomery, I know you came to the microphone to address questions, but did you have any comments that you want to make as an overview of the project, or any additional comments?
No, sir, I don't think so. Nothing I didn't say a while ago. Just like to let the board know, assure that the client is, they've been very patient with and looked at this at many different angles and working with the city. I think we've put a good effort forward, but again, I know not everyone's going to agree, but I think we've tried to meet the spirit of the city's requirements.
Thank you. Well, we appreciate the patience of the audience here to allow. Oh, Director Beard?
Yes, I had questions for Mrs. Garrett, please. I got to visit the property yesterday. I received numerous emails, so I'm trying to, I know like the loudest voices aren't always the right voices or the ones that I agree with, but I did want to ask you about there's 96 calls because of drug problems in the neighborhood or in the Shortcrest area?
All different calls. I've got the police chief's log if you'd like it.
We received
Well,
it.
You've got it in the packet?
Yes.
Yeah, it's called for all kinds of stuff. I mean, everything under the sun. Robbery, child endangerment, wanted person.
Well, I'm just confused, so my question is just a lack of not knowing, but do you own those little bungalows or
Yep.
houses there? Well, are you renting to the people that are coming in?
Yes.
Or some of them are staying? Why are you renting to people that are causing these problems for the neighbors?
Because you don't have any way of knowing when you rent to someone what they're going to do when they're in there. If the police and the sheriff can't keep up with it, how am I going to keep up with it? If they have an ID, nowadays we can Google them or we can look something up. But short of that, I can't control what they do.
Okay, well, the neighbors, I'm just really concerned because of the safety issues and the surrounding people that live on both sides and even on the other side of the lake. They're telling me that people have done drug transactions via water. It's a really big concern because of the property values of the people that live on the lake, and then there's people that believe that you don't really care to who you rent, and that you're kind of fostering this kind of behavior.
Then they're wrong.
Okay, thank you.
Director Webb?
Thank you, Mayor. This might be a question, I think, for you, Mr. Montgomery. And I'll keep my question and inquiry quite quick because I know we've got a lot who are signed up and probably ready to talk. But we were spending some time earlier discussing traffic and the impact of traffic in the neighborhood, and I want to make sure that I hear from you on this particular issue involving traffic, and that is the causeway as it relates to the causeway. I've looked, I've done a little bit of research on the average weight of an RV, and this is coming from J.D. Power, so you can fact check me too if you'd like, but it looks like the average weight of an RV is 10,000 pounds. Cars range anywhere between 2,500 to 4,200 pounds on average, and then SUV and trucks are somewhere between 3,500 and 6,000 pounds. So based on this data here in front of me, I'm seeing that RVs on average weigh more than your typical vehicle or SUV or truck. Did your proposal take into consideration what kind of an impact the weight of the RVs coming across that causeway might have on the potential damage caused to the roadways? Or do you vision any type of damage occurring to Lakeland Drive as it relates to that causeway?
Well, Mr. Webb, our project site is down from that bridge. Of course, what you're, I guess, concerned about the loads coming across that causeway there?
Yes, sir. I would anticipate that being, based on what I've been reading on your proposal, that being the major entrance into this RV park.
Right.
As the RVs are coming onto the property. So we're looking at, at minimum, if you hit your expectation of filling all 33 slots and not keeping anybody there over 30 days, if that's the desire of the city, then that's at least 33 trips a month with that much weight. And I don't think we can, have any crystal ball to determine how many days somebody's going to stay if they're in an RV, if it's short or if it's the full length. But that type of weight coming across,
right?
Would that have an impact on the causeway?
To say that there's a part of the process, I would think it's probably a part of the process of the city as they look at that right there, sir. But, can you imagine what's been going on through the years across there? So I think my quick answer to that load's not going to be a problem across here. But I don't know, Keith, you may want to add to that, but that's something, we're designing that site. The project site. We're making improvements to the road. So I think that if there was concern for that, I think that would have come through the due diligence process with the city. And I think if you look over time what's gone out there, Mr. Webb, there's, the condos were developed. You had cement trucks. Everything's gone on out there through time. So that road's pretty stable, I would say. But again, when we typically do a project, we're focused on that site right there. But unless there's times when there's traffic studies warranted or whatever, but, at this point, we focused on the site, the city focused, with us, we looked around, and I think we've addressed those concerns, with the city. The city would have pointed out if there was concern. But if you're asking, did we specifically go back there and do a load rating on that causeway? No, sir.
Yeah, I bring that question up to you because that is part of the review process from 16-2-47 is to not create undue or unmitigate negative traffic impacts. And if we've got a vehicle, in this case such as an RV, that does have a substantial amount of more weight on average than your typical vehicle or SUV or truck, I would have thought that might be an area that you would check out, and not to mention the weight of that RV, but also the width of the road that it's traveling on as it crosses that causeway. That causeway is I don't know what the specific measurements are.
Typically, sir, we do not get that far out on what we do.
Okay.
Typically, if we were but that's the simple answer. Unless Keith wants to say different on that. No. We're looking at that. Obviously, if there's a concern about that, I'm sure street department or somebody would have brought that up and during the process in the DRC.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Again, the speakers, are now limited to 3 minutes. if we ask you 20 minutes worth of questions, that's not part of your 3, okay? So we'll begin with Mr. Neil Gladner. Is Mr. Gladner here? Please come forward, state your name, address, and district, please. And do we have a timer? Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board, and city officials. Thank you so much for the time to be here, and thank you to everyone in the room for showing community interest about what's going on in our neighborhood. I don't know that I'm going to get to all the comments I planned because of what I have just heard, but clearly so much of the concern about this development has to do with safety. I was unaware, if I heard Ms. Garrett correctly, that the Hot Springs Police Department now has a no-go zone in that area after dark, and that's probably something the board will want to ask the police chief about at some time. But to think that police officers in Hot Springs are afraid to go to that area after dark, I find very surprising. I'll leave it at that. I also don't know how counsel for the proponent could suggest that while there are drug problems there now, that those drug problems will go away with this development. Talk about speculation. That's exactly what that is. There is no way to know that they will go away. And in fact, Ms. Garrett spoke against her own position on that, in my opinion, because it's been mentioned that some of that drug traffic comes by way of water. Well, an RV park with no on-site manager is not going to stop drug traffic from coming and going by water. And drug dealers are pretty they come up with ideas. Let's just say they follow the path of water. So they could rent an RV for 30 days, set up their little shop, and their drug dealers can come after nightfall, and there is that problem as well. Lakeland Drive, I agree that it is not the developer's responsibility to improve a problem on the road beyond where they are developing, but it's also their responsibility, or the city's responsibility, I should say, to make sure that it doesn't get worse. And that area across where there are fishermen, there's only a guardrail on one side of that causeway, but many of the fishermen are on the other side, and there's virtually no area there that is, it's just such a narrow shoulder. I worry about that when I drive through there. Now I can't imagine what it's going to be like when there are 10-foot wide RVs coming through there on a regular basis. And many of us who drive through there kind of slow down a lot, especially if there's oncoming traffic, and that won't be made better by RVs. I want to be sensitive to the time, Mr. Mayor, but it's always been a residential area before the city annexed it. It should continue to be a residential area. It should not be a commercial development. On the city website, the board states in its mission statement, maintaining the high quality of life while improving the character and quality of all neighborhoods. Now, granted, that is a very subjective thing, as are many of the things in the planning process, but the neighborhood and the owners of those properties should be considered when using such a subjective criteria. There is no outpouring of support from the 1,000+ residents who live on this peninsula, only the developers and those who are very nearby that they could persuade to speak here tonight. You develop one piece of property and make it commercial without ongoing supervision of whoever's living there. And what's to stop more commercial from coming on Lakeland Drive? A lawyer friend of mine was always fond of pointing out a term that he said, the disintegrating erosion of particular exception, which is, I think, is legal speak for slippery slope. And that's just what this might be. It's always been residential. It should continue to be residential, and I implore the board to reject this application. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Gladner? Thank you. Haley Curry? Haley or Holly Curry? Haley Curry? Please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, I'm speaking as a resident of the area affected. I don't have a prepared speech, but I wonder if the city is planning to resurface Lakeland Drive for this. It's in terrible shape now. those heavy RVs are certainly going to affect it adversely. We've had water main breaks. I just cannot see any way that an RV park is going to improve our neighborhood. I'm not against commercial development, but I certainly would like to see our neighborhood stay a neighborhood and not have something like an RV park right in front of us. The area has changed so much, and it's not what we moved into. I feel that we have really, really lost a sense of neighborhood. And something like this, and I only learned in this morning's paper that the hill was going to be leveled. That's changing the character. It's not a good move. I just hope that the directors will think about this. And would you want this to happen to your neighborhood? Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Curry? Thank you. I see that there's an open chair next to the chief of police, and I've done this in the past when we've had many speakers. I'm going to call two people up at this time. One will sit in the chair, and one will come to the podium, and then we'll have the person in the chair come to the podium. I'll have another person. It takes a little bit of time to kind of squeeze through the crowd, so we'll try to cut down on some time there. Mr. William Curry, did you want to come forward? And sitting next to the chief will be Mindy Williams. Is Mindy nearby? Mr. Curry, please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. My name's William Curry, and I'm a 35-year resident of the area and concern here. And Mr. Mayor, I would like to ask for a show of hands from the board of those who are familiar with Lakeland Drive in the area that we're talking about. Could I see a show of hands?
Well, but that's, I
Okay.
appreciate the comment, but that's really not what we're here for.
I'm sorry.
Well, we're here to receive your testimony.
Well, I would like to be able to address in my testimony the concern created by Lakeland Drive in this area where this RV park is contemplated. There are a lot of problems there. My wife was just here and iterated some of them, but unless you're familiar with the area, it doesn't really make much of an impact. I would really suggest that before a board member voted on this, they ought to go look at the area and see what we're talking about. Also, you know, the area is not going to be improved by establishing an RV park in a residential area. And I've heard comments here about how this is going to reduce the crime rate. You know, this is ridiculous. And I trust that you members of the board are well aware of this situation and will judge this concern appropriately. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we'll call Mindy Williams to the podium, restate your name, address, and district, and I would ask Libby Burton to come and sit next to the chief for a few minutes, probably the safest seat in town.
Mindy Williams, 374 Lakeland, I, again, don't have a speech or anything. I'm here just addressing the, I am directly next to the Shorecrest. I have witnessed some of some terrible things. And I bought the property to entertain my family and my grandchildren, and my kids do not want my grandkids there because they throw needles. There's drug paraphernalia in my yard because I'm directly behind the fence. My concern is for my concern. You know, the streets, I do understand that. I do understand a traffic problem, but the unsightly things that I have to look at just sitting on my deck, I'm as close to this lady right here as to the residents who I am afraid of sometimes because of their language. I have called the police numerous times, so much that I would just say when I drove up to my thing, I would say, I'm calling the police. That was just how it was known. There were a lot of drugs that we could just even smell. And my kids were like, we don't want to bring our kids over here to a drug-infested place where we know what goes along with drugs. And I can appreciate that the people that aren't directly next to it don't see that, but I do. And just wanting to say that I've spoken to Miss Garrett via email. Tonight's the first night I've ever even seen her, but I would like to say that she has been very kind and told me that what I would have next to my house would be very pleasing to my sight. She is going to try to keep bad elements out. You can't keep a bad element out of every place. That's impossible. This world is pretty bad, so we got a lot of bad elements everywhere. But to try to eliminate what is there right now, you have to change the environment. You got to change it, because if it stays the same element is going to be there, in my opinion. Thank you all.
Ms. Williams, before you leave, what is your understanding of when they pull that hill down? You're the house to the left, or
Yes,
would be
sir.
to the east?
Yes, sir.
So your west property line
Yes, sir.
adjacent to them. How do you
To my
envision that?
knowledge, there's going to be like a retaining wall with the fence. That was to my
Like 20 feet
knowledge.
high retaining wall?
I don't think I think they're going to slope it down to make it where it doesn't have to be that high. Am I correct? That's what I've been told.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's got to be 20 feet off to begin with as a setback, and then.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Now we have Libby Burton coming to the microphone, and I'd like Ron Cameron to come forward and sit here next to the chief. Libby, restate your name, address, and district, please.
I'm Elizabeth Burton, called Libby, and I'm a Cameron, and this is my brother. So we have property on East Lakeland Point. I'm 130, and we've had that property in our family since I was 5 years old, and we've been coming over, and I've been a permanent resident there for 25 years. And just lost my husband, and we love the place. And I drive, and I talked to Dudley, thank you, and Phyllis a moment, thank you. We love the place. And that beautiful green hillside when you drive down, it's a breezy, narrow road, Lakeland Drive. Although I'm not living across from it, it's part of our neighborhood. People jog down that. My daughter comes from out of town. They don't know about all this stuff. They just know this is trees and green and, you know, it's our town. So, thank you.
Very good. Any questions for Ms. Burton?
And of course, I'm opposed to a trailer park, or RV park.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll have Mr. Cameron come forward, and I would like Alan Michaela to come and
I'm
sit
Ronald
next
Cameron.
to the chief.
I live in Little Rock. I'm the chairman of Mount Air Corporation. And in addition to the property that my family's had for over 70 years, where I own some adjacent to my sister. I also bought property on South Lakeland Point and to build a retirement home there. The Lakeland Drive is the entrance to a neighborhood. It's the only way you can get there. You turn off Highway 7 and so forth. So I mean, anybody in that neighborhood, someone mentioned 1,000, residents in that area. I'm not sure how many there are, but the homes there range now from something in the $200,000 range up to over $1 million homes. This is a nice neighborhood. I have watched over the 70 years the neighborhood improve and mobile homes, be moved out and so forth. It's been upgraded. The solution to drugs and roaches is not changing from dilapidated houses to RV. I'm afraid that they don't care. Roaches will get in anywhere, and so will the roachy people. Excuse me. So I don't think that's a solution to that problem, and I do think the problem should be solved. And will it hurt the property values? Absolutely. An RV park, at the entrance to this neighborhood is going to, just add another 30 years till it gets changed over to something else of taking the values down. That'll lower my property taxes. So if that's what you want to do, which I don't think, that'll work. But I think there's a better solution to getting rid of the drugs and the roaches than tearing down this beautiful hill, which hides all those properties they talked about. You don't see them from the road because they're on the other side. And the lake, you don't really see them because of all the trees that kind of hide the structures. Anyway, you might want to drive by there. It's a beautiful place. The kids love to walk on that road. They go down to the boat marina to go fishing and so forth. You all have heard all about the safety problems and everything. Everything you've heard is right about tearing up the roads, about the danger to the kids, and so on. So just keep that in mind. And if you want to improve Hot Springs, I'm afraid this is just not the way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Cameron? Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, now we'll hear from Mr. Alan McCullough, and I would like to Chuck Hardin to come and sit next to the chief.
May I blow some smoke and congratulations to our Parks Department for all their beautiful flowers. Don't start my 3 minutes yet, please. I want to wait till Mr. Burrow comes back. But I do believe, our Parks Department and the flowers that we've got, this is top-notch city. This is top-notch.
Yeah, we won't be waiting on Mr. Burrow. Just
okay.
Please state your
My name's
testimony.
Alan McCullough. I live at 221 Little John Trail. I hear the noise. I hear the gunshots. I see the police cars. See the lights going. To my knowledge, they're frequently over there. And the applicant may make a very good improvement to the area. You didn't have a column out there to speak for or against and in the middle. But I'm going to bring up some points. What happened at the zoning commission? The applicant approached the zoning commission and they said, oh, no, you don't have all your ducks in a row. You got to meet these 9 standards of 16, whatever it is. And so they did. They even had revisions brought in that night. But then when they finally came for the zoning commission vote, one person, one member of that commission was going to vote negative. And she was cautioned, whoops, gender neutral here. That member was cautioned that if you're going to vote against it, you must state what part of the ordinance they failed to meet. That's why you have an overwhelming vote by the zoning commission. That's the only reason you have an overwhelming vote. And when they met their 9 concerns, they completed their requirements. My concern is, can we have a picture of the plot plan? The technical evaluation of the zoning request number 6. The commercial hot springs marina and boat storage operations is approximately 450 feet from the subject property. A RV park located on large lakefront property in close proximity is in keeping with the character of the area. Really? It's residential. Hot Springs Marina has been there for eons. It's accepted. Now, she may do a good improvement by putting an RV park there. And the property values north of, no, ma'am, okay. The property values north of Lakeland from there, if they go down in value and they become blighted, she can buy that property. She can put in then a beach, a marina, a boat dock, gas pumps. There's no restrictions because the wording in here is usual and customary accessory uses with conditions. And then in section 1 of ordinance 02310 on page 38 of the 49, and for other purposes. Folks, that's a blank check. Can I have 1,000? Can I have a blank check? Because this has given them a blank check to do whatever they want. A restaurant, a bar, a beach, bathhouses, showers. They may do a very good job, but by giving them those provisions in here, that's a blanket opportunity for, I can build whatever I want.
Mr. McCullough, please provide a concluding comment.
I'm sorry, I'll stop right there. But, concluding comment, one short one. I've investigated and conducted interviews for arson investigation over the years, for many years, and I can read body language. This has been entertaining, to say the least.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor and directors, I appreciate the opportunity.
Let me call on Roger Smith to come forward and sit next to the chief, please. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name is Chuck Harder. My wife, Duanna, and I live in Lakeland Harbor condominiums, 451 Lakeland, which is in 5. And my wife's parents bought into Lakeland Lodge when it first went condo in the late 1960s. My grandchildren will be 5th generation to fish on that bay out there, and the 3rd generation to learn how to ski. So we've seen the neighborhood over the years. And this is a step in the wrong direction. When we came out there, there was Chambers Landing, was business out there. Trailer parks exist where we are today. We have really nice condos where there used to be a trailer park. There used to be a place where there was a bar next door. And those things have slowly gone away over the course of time. Between our place and Hot Springs Marina, a lot of those 1950s houses have either been updated or replaced with homes that are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. This has taken us back in the wrong direction. To reintroduce mobile homes, I mean, they are essentially mobile homes, headed in the wrong direction. Director Webb, you asked a really good question about the impact this is going to have beyond the property itself. All I've heard about from the applicant and others that are for it is what's going to happen right around the property, but you have to go all the way back up to Central to see what's going to happen. I'll tell you, the water has broken at least 3 times in the last 12 months. There was a huge break in that 10-inch water main up by Casey's not too long ago. They had to close the road and reroute people for hours around there. So you got to look at it holistically. You can't just look at this project. You got to look at the impact it's going to have on the road and the utilities that are underneath or near that road. That water main's going to have to be moved. That road's going to have to be widened. The gas lines are going to have to be moved. If there's underground electrical, it's going to have to be moved. There's a lot of money that's going to have to be spent to put something in a neighborhood that nobody wants. We're concerned, so I think you gotta have a vision for where you want that neighborhood going, and I don't think it meets that vision. You have to look at it holistically and then listen to the neighbors around. We're concerned. We're concerned in Lakeland Harbor because all it takes is for one gate code to get to one person, and all the amenities that they don't have at that RV campground, all of a sudden they come to us. We've had that problem over the years with people coming into our complex and using our swimming pool and our hot tub, and that's just going to get worse. You know, at first, there might be some good people that are in there, but eventually there's going to be a lot of Cousin Eddies in that trailer park. Director Beard, you asked another good question. Why is the current property owner not doing anything to abate this nuisance? And that's exactly what it is. It's a nuisance. What you heard from her is, we didn't do our due diligence to find out it was a nuisance till after we bought it. Now that we have it, we only want to do one thing with it, or we're just going to keep operating it as a nuisance. I will tell you, lease agreements typically have in them provisions that say if you conduct illegal activities on the property or anything like that, you could be evicted. And that's not happening. Obviously, it's not happening. It's better to get the check than to abate the nuisance. I think the action that ought to happen here is the city ought to take a hard look at its rights as a city to abate the nuisance that presently exists. That's the solution to the problem, not putting an RV park where nobody wants it to be. I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions of Mr. Harding? Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll hear from Roger Smith, so please restate your name and address and district, and I'll call Irv Slate to come sit next to the chief. Thank
Okay.
you.
My name's Roger Smith. I own the property right across the street. There's a gated community, has 5 townhomes in it. I'm 403 Lakeland Drive. My other neighbor here tonight, I brought Mr. John Wolf. He also lives in that gated community. The townhouses right directly across the street. And this is the first time I've been from city council, never been in the courthouse. I'm an oil man, have an oil company down South Arkansas. We drill oil wells and complete them and everything, do a lot of construction work. And this has been education for me now, because I've heard a lot of people say things tonight, and I've been pretty successful, but I've heard a lot of stuff that's not true. Strictly about things that I'd like to elaborate on. I've been up here, I'm 70 years old, but I'm familiar with Lakeland Drive. When I was in college, University of Arkansas, I rented just where that guy said, Lakeland Lodge. And then I eventually bought a unit down there. So that's 1973, that's 50 years. And I've seen the bars he's talking about, the nice, quaint chambers landing tore down. I was there, I'd lived that life. But progress made, everything's changed, it's gotten better. But I'm telling you, I'm hearing things about the streets tore up and everything. Sir, I don't know your name, but you just said, can you say those motor homes are 10,000 pounds? What did you say? What did you say, the weight load?
Yeah, just address the board, sir.
Yeah, that's nothing. I've got a bush hog that sit right in here. I'm in the construction business. I got stuff. I have a John Deere 550 bulldozer that weighs 15,000 pounds. It's not that big. They got bulldozers weigh 20 and 30,000. Those cement trucks come across that bridge every day. A lot more weight than that, and a 18-wheeler bricks are coming in to build construction. During my 50 years, I've seen you've got other problems besides those $10,000 mobile homes. These are $500,000 homes. Y'all talking about drug people going to be in that park? There's not, those people drive those $500,000. They're not drug people. They're not dependent people that the police are worried about. I live across the street. Everything that this lawyer, Miss Garrett has, and everything, it's that and more. That's just what the police report. It's the sirens are going off. The ambulances are coming up there. I've been over there 18 years, ever since those places were built. One of the first ones, we were there. Mr. John Wolf was first, I was the second. We bought those places. And it's a crime neighborhood. And people say, well, what can you do about it? It's just run down. It's low rent. That's what draws that crowd. It's a nuisance. That police officer out there will tell every one of y'all not to drive through there after dark tonight. I'm an urbanist. I'm out on the rigs at night. I carry a pistol. I won't go up there at night, and I'm pretty gutsy. That's the truth now. People are saying this, and like you said, the hill up there. That ain't a hill or like something special like in the Civil War. It's just a mound of dirt up there. Very few. It's not been kept up. It will be landscaped now with a gate and be beautiful. I didn't know Mr. Garrett and them were going to widen that thing. She's solving the road problem. When you widen that thing 16 feet, did I hear that or something, to another lane, she's going to build another lane. That's going to correct any road. All the people, those RVs turning in that gate are going to be on her property tearing that kind. And I know Mr. Garrett's in the construction business. He's not gonna pour concrete that's not gonna hold up those RVs. They're successful construction people. They're they're not gonna make a mistake on their own place they're building. It's gonna destroy the roads. So I'm in favor of to get rid of, it's like everything else that had to go. But it is a crime scene. It needs to be gone. And she's got a project that's gonna limit the amount of people coming in there. It's also, those RVs don't drive 40 miles and 50 miles an hour down there like motorcycles and stuff like that. And do you realize how far it is
Mr.
from where
Smith,
mobile
please
home
provide
park
your-
to the red light is on Highway 7? It's less than a quarter of a mile, I'm guessing. So the traffic, we're talking about, people say there's gonna be a traffic, 1/4 of a mile.
Yeah, please provide a concluding comment.
Yeah, I just say, I see a lot of people here confused tonight about the facts of weight and tearing things up and saying that doing nothing is an option up there. Something, the police, I'm sure, want it gone.
Thank
I
you.
want it gone, and my neighbors that live there want it gone.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from Mr. Irv Slade, and please restate your name and address, and I'd ask Dr. Patrick Osam to come sit next to the chief.
My name's Irv Slade. I live at 451 Lakeland Drive with my wife Ann. We retired from up north just a few years ago, and we talked about, my brother lives in Florida, we have relatives in Arizona, we have relatives in California, and we scratched them all off the list because we wanted to live in Arizona, in Arkansas. And we moved here, and my wife and her family had vacationed in Hot Springs. I'd been here with her to visit we love Hot Springs. Great place. So many good things about Hot Springs. And one of the great things that really attracted us was Lake Hamilton. Lake Hamilton it's a prize. And it's being used this week to, with Big Al, the fishing contest. But when you go around Lake Hamilton, you find a lot of beautiful, beautiful homes. But most of them aren't in Hot Springs. What do you have? We have some nice condos, we have some nice homes, and there's some developable property that can add to that. This piece of property, this 4 acres with 400 feet of frontage on Lake Hamilton is a prize. I mean, it is a beautiful piece of property, and something should be done to improve the community, not to tear it down. RV park, trailer park, mobile home, call it what you will, it's going to be a bunch of concrete pads and big vehicles coming in and going out right across the street, right across Lakeland Drive from some really beautiful homes. It's going to be, I hope it's going to be out of place. I hope this isn't a trend. What the property owner decides to do with his property is up to the property owner. What the council approves when that property owner comes here is up to the council. This council has the opportunity to turn us in the right direction or to let another trailer park be built, wasting 400 feet of frontage, 4 acres of beautiful developable property, and turn it into potentially more of the worst that we've had out there. Now, the owner has said, properly, they're planning on bulldozing those 31 substandard dwellings, and that needs to be done. And any smart developer would do that, but they're going to replace it with 33 trailers. How is that going to be an improvement? You move out 31 substandard houses, you move in 33 trailers. Is that going to solve the problems in the area? I think not. We're going to have more of the same, maybe worse. Maybe it'll take a year or two before it downgrades. Anyway, one other point I would like to make in my last 2 seconds, if I could have that. You've heard a lot about Lakeland Drive, and that is a concern. You've heard some talk about the causeway, and that's a really big concern. That causeway, the pavement, of course, is deficient, but we drive over it and we get along. It's not wide enough. We go around, today I drove around Fisher persons who were, one of them was a little kid, and he's backing up, and you just go over into the other lane and you go around. It needs to be widened.
Yeah, please
You can't
provide a
widen
concluding,
it.
yeah, please provide a
I'll
concluding
close it
comment.
down. You can't just widen it because you're going to get into the lake, and that's going to cause bureaucratic problems this city's going to have to deal with. The property developer can't solve that problem. The city is going to have to, but the city can do it in an orderly fashion in the future. This
Thank you.
project will require immediate, urgent action at the expense of the city and the taxpayers, and I hope we won't have to go through that. Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate your patience.
Thank you. We'll hear from Dr. Patrick Osam, and I'd ask that Ford Overstart, you're close enough, you don't have to move too far, unless you want that extra protection. So,
I'm Dr.
Osam.
Patrick Awesome,
Awesome, thank you.
and I have property at 122 and 124 Parkwood, and I'm in District 5. My wife and I and my family have been residents on Lake Hamilton since 1989 and have 2 homes at the locations I just mentioned on Parkwood, which is accessed only by Lakeland Drive, as is the case with almost 1,500 residents in the area. Speaking from the perspective of a 42-year career as a general and trauma surgeon and as the trauma surgery consultant in the initial formation of the MEMS Emergency Medical Services for Little Rock and Central Arkansas many years ago, it is a logical fact that a rapid and unimpeded response to an emergency is critical to the outcome of that emergency. We are concerned about the potential for an accident involving an RV vehicle along Lakeland Drive or at the RV park entrance that would block Lakeland Drive, that would significantly impede emergency services access in the event of a burglary or assault requiring police services, health emergencies requiring ambulance services, or a fire requiring fire department services. In fact, in January this year, embers from our neighbor's leaf burning ignited a fire on our adjacent property. Had it not been for the Hot Springs Fire Department having access via Lakeland Drive to extinguish the fire, our house would have been significantly damaged or destroyed, adding to the 2/3 of our yard and other landscaping that was also burned. In addition, since beginning our residency in 1989 on Lake Hamilton, we have been the victims of 3 break-ins of our home. During the second break-in, I was standing in our kitchen as the burglar was crawling through the kitchen window he had broken, attempting to come back and steal items that had not been stolen during a break-in 2 weeks previously. Had it not been for the timely arrival of law enforcement in response to my wife's phone call, the outcome for me and my wife could have been drastically tragic. An accident or an RV-related event, or similar to what happened when the water main broke on Lakeland and stopped traffic, any event like that that impedes emergency services access via Lakeland Drive to these multiple residential areas places in peril the residents' health, safety, and property. Question for the board. If an accident or other incident related to RV vehicular activity along Lakeland Drive impedes or prevents emergency services to respond in a timely fashion and results in the injury or death of a resident or destruction of the property, to what extent is the board and/or the city willing to accept liability by not assuring the provision of safety and access for emergency services to this area and these residents? Is it not the responsibility of the city to protect and serve its citizens, a phrase we see on police vehicles in other municipalities? Therefore, my wife and I respectfully request that in the interest of multiple constituents and taxpayers in these affected residential areas, let our voices be heard and our votes count, and reject this RV park proposal. Thank you to the board and directors and mayor for allowing me to express our concerns.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Thank you. Now again, we'll hear from Mr. Ford Overton, and I'd ask that Larry Horstman come and sit next to the chief. Ford?
Yes,
please.
sir. Thank you, Mayor and Board. My name is Ford Overton, and my wife Stephanie and I are might be the newest residents of Hot Springs sitting in here tonight, and we're very excited to be here. Born and raised in Little Rock, and so we live at 143 South Lakeland Point. I'm real impressed with Hot Springs and what Hot Springs has to offer. It's really a special place. I do want to bring up this. I served on the Arkansas Game Fish Commission from 2012 to 2019. I have sat exactly where y'all are, and when you manage over 750,000 acres, you're going to be dealing with easement issues, land swaps, acquisitions, developments. So I empathize and I appreciate the service that you provide, because I've sat there. I sat in your seat for 7 years and dealt with things all over the state. Always reminded, when I was chair of the Game and Fish, I reminded our group, because every month we would have a land issue come up. I would say we are going to do the right thing by listening, and we're going to take it all in. We're also going to do the logical thing. We're going to make sure that we are applying logic and common sense and reason behind the decisions that we're going to make. And also we're going to listen loudly to the public and what's going on around, and the passion that comes behind the people that care enough to come give their time. I'm opposed to the RV park, not to cast a stone at Miss Garrett or whatever their project is. That's irrelevant. I totally respect a landowner and their ability to do with their land as they may please, if all the checks are checked. So I'm not here to cast a stone. I'm here to just say I appreciate your service. I understand where you are and what you're doing. I've been there, and I think Hot Springs is a great place, but I'm opposed to the development of an RV park at the proposed site. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, we got Mr. Larry Horseman, and I'd asked Kay Kuntz to come forward and move your 3 feet and sit next to the chief.
My name's Larry Horseman. My wife, Susan Horseman, sitting back here. We have been proud owners of 379 Lakeland Drive in the family since 1952. So the house is 70 years old, a little over. Other than looking at it, it's not dilapidated. It's not anything. We spend a lot of money, put a lot of love into it, and try to be good owners for not only our neighbors, but the betterment of Hot Springs, because it means so much to us. Now, I'm going to change gears here and tell you what I'm really going to speak about. That was my personal statement. I'm going to talk about transportation. That's what I've been doing since 1982. With the stint from 2006 to 2016, I was president of a homeowners association, about 200 homes. So I know a little bit about a couple of things I'm going to talk about. The one about transportation is, when they say RV, you got Class A, Class B, and so on. You got to know what you're talking about. Class A is anywhere from 13,000 to 30,000 pounds. That's the vehicle. Some of them have a place where you can pull it out and put a car inside, a Lamborghini or whatever you want. Money's not the issue here. But then that 45-foot Class A diesel pusher, as they call it, can pull a 26-foot boat behind it. Car and trailer are shorter, but it can pull a 26 or longer. You do those numbers and you add those weight limits. We're pushing way more than 10,000 pounds. In some instances, you have a pickup truck pulling a 38-foot trailer and a 22-foot boat behind it. Lakeland Drive was never designed for that, period. It was designed for a lot less than that. It hadn't been changed. If you drive down it right now, there's holes up by the Casey's, I guess that's what they call it now. Now, I'm going to correct a few things said here tonight. Lakeland Marina is nowhere near the proposed site. The proposed site is straight across from our front door. We know when cars come. We know when they go. We're well aware of it. So everybody goes in and out there, we know, all hours of the night. It was never, and then if you go on back Lakeland Drive, you really don't have room. Now, to get to the meat of it, in my job since 1982, I've been a Class A driver, driven anything and everything that's designed. I've dispatched, meaning that I dispatch these guys into places. In a situation like Lakeland Drive, I will send nothing more than a 28-foot delivery truck, period. Because of the width of the roads, the weight on the causeway, and the rest of the roads on back. Something, if you'll bear with me, my time's run out, but something that's very important to this, there was a proposed RV park up by Cornerstone, behind Cornerstone, in fact. It was turned down because the roads weren't big enough. Have you been over there versus ours? Number two, they want to check everybody in at Cornerstone. If you look up the address, it's behind Chick-fil-A. Have you driven up Central Avenue when it's time for Chick-fil-A, not including everybody else? Then you got to turn in the entrance. Then you got to turn behind Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, Mr. Horstman.
Carrying all this.
Just provide a concluding comment.
I will. So my point is, you're not only are you hitting a residential area, you're going into a heavy commercial area. I don't think you can get tractor trailers in that entrance, but they go straight. They don't turn. Now, you might, but the whole point is you're impacting two major areas with this one operation, this one business. And neither one of them are designed for the vehicles that are going to be brought in.
Thank you. Thank you. And we'll have Kay Kuntz, and I would like John Way. John, Mr. Way, did you want to come forward and speak?
Mr. Wolf's 95 years old. Can he speak from out here?
Well, we won't be able to hear. He just come up, sit next to the chief, and for a minute. Miss Kuntz,
Yes.
go right ahead.
Okay, I'm Kay Young Kuntz. I grew up at Alpine Chalets. I've lived in Hot Springs off and on 60-something plus years. The things that I have seen that have happened on Lakeland Drive is it has gone from commercial to residential. It used to have a number of lake resorts. Well, eventually, everything has switched over. We were annexed into the city in 2016, is that correct? And then, therefore, it continues to improve, which I told our parents that that would happen. And that's the good thing about being annexed into the city, that they would have some control over what went on around us. I have a house at 105 Borough Shores that I built. I have a property at 365 that is directly across the street from the place we're discussing. That place has had a lot of crime, and it needs to have somebody that wants to invest in the property, wants to take ownership into that property. I'm sorry, renters, nothing against renters. I obviously am a landlord. But I would like to see, it's a very expensive property. I would like to see somebody that wants to develop that property into an ownership, someone that's going to give to the community, that's going to pay property tax, that's going to own their neighbors and want to do the right thing.
Any questions of Ms. Kuntz? Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
We'll hear from Mr. John Way and would ask that,
I'll stay here if it'd be all right. I can lean back again.
go right ahead, sir. I know that,
I think I'm loud enough. My name's John Wolf. I live at 399 Lakeland Drive. I've been there 18 years. I see cars, trucks, big trucks, bigger and bigger and heavier than motorhomes running up and down the street every day. I don't see any evidence around town that motorhomes that run up and down streets all over town are damaging the streets. So it doesn't seem to me that that's a good reason to oppose it. I'm in favor of it. We've got to get rid of what we had over there, and everybody knows that. But this raises one point for me after hearing all this today. And that is, can we or do we have the right to deny a property owner the opportunity to develop his property with a legitimate business because maybe, possibly, the city has not provided an adequate street? And that seems to me that the question has been brought up time and time again tonight. And I appreciate your job, and I wouldn't want to do it myself. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak.
thank you. Bill Nuri, Mr. Nuri, and then we'll have Elizabeth Elrod sit next to the chief for a minute. Elizabeth Elrod. Mr. Nuri, please restate your name, address, and district, please.
Mayor, City Council, board members, I appreciate this time. My name is Bill Neri, 125 Beacon Hill Road, Hot Springs, District 5. I've been a Good Sam RV member since 1976. Good Sam is a Good Sam RV Club, 2.3 million members. I was the state director for Arkansas for 9 years. I just finished my tour in 2022. RVers are not like CDL drivers. Anybody there can buy an RV, they take you out, drive it, and you're on the road. I've seen most things that can happen to an RV, and you can imagine in my time. This area down where they want to go, you're going to have big rigs. We draw them. Hot Springs, you got water, you got the casino, you got entertainment. You're going to draw the big rigs. They're going to want to go down there, and they're heavy. They may not hurt the roads, but I don't know down inside there. I didn't get down there because I didn't know what was at. But I know the RV rigs, they're heavy. I had a 40-footer that pulled an 18-foot SUV, so I know they're heavy. And backing up, I've seen everything. I've seen a guy who had 25 years of experience backing up, who was the regional director for the 5 states here in the South, back into electric connector, because you have so many things to see. If they don't have enough area, enough turn, you're going to have a problem. I've seen it. I've done it. I've made the turn, didn't make it wide enough to run the back 2 wheels over a ditch. You just don't, you have to watch it all the time. The boys in blue will tell you, CDL drivers and people in town, they don't stay in the roads. They weave over, push in and out. You have to watch everything you're doing. It's the same when they park. They have to watch what they're doing when they back up. And it's very important for that. And I don't think it's a good place to have them. Could be a lot of expensive homes put down there, whatever you want. But an RV, we tried to get an RV park out at the fairgrounds, and somebody turned it down. but we need room for these people that back up that are not as good. And I'm not an expert, but I know it can be dangerous, especially in a tight area.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Neri? Thank you. We're going to hear from Elizabeth Elrod, and I'd like Alan Deshawn. Did I get that right? Yeah, please come forward and sit next to the chief. Miss Elrod.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, directors, city officials. I appreciate the opportunity. Just as a quick aside, for all of those of you who helped in the fight to defeat SB 197, I sure do appreciate it. It was very meaningful to me, and it was an attempt at saving my neighborhood. And that's kind of why I'm here tonight. I feel, once again, that our neighborhood is possibly jeopardized or threatened a little bit. What we have here is an opportunity for two things. We're going to have 33 short-term rentals, or we're going to end up having 33 long-term. The applicant stated on at least 4 occasions in her testimony before the Planning Commission that she was targeting and marketing to long-term residents, or campers, I guess they call them in the RV world. I know that Director Holliday asked the question about whether they could become like a trailer park. Well, technically no, because they have wheels on them. But I'll give you an example. I have a very dear friend who owns a $500,000 RV. He pays annually for a pad in Florida, which he uses 3 months of the year. So technically it stays there. So it basically has become a mobile home park, or motor home park, I guess. So that's one of my concerns. The other issue, and I think it's the overall issue for me, is there is no ordinance. There is nothing to regulate or govern. Manager Burrow and Attorney Albright, that's your name, they will testify that I like regulation, I like rules, I like people to be held accountable. There is absolutely nothing in the city ordinances that will control what happens if this is approved. And they can say that they're going to limit the stay or what, but there's nothing on the books that requires that. So it's imperative that the city do something to govern, for a lack of a better term, this before they approve something like this within the city limits, within a residential community. So I just really feel like we need to step back and we need to do the right thing on the front end instead of trying to fix it on the back end, because there will be issues. Yes, I live on Little John Trail. So guess what? I'm on the lakeside of all this mess that's gone on. I know what goes on. I know from firsthand what goes on. But I also know it's the responsibility of the owner to take care of that. So I just feel like we're trying to just wipe away the situation and start over rather than being responsible from the get-go. So I appreciate all you've done, and I appreciate listening to me. There are a lot of reasons to vote no. You only need one.
Very good. Thank you. Now we'll hear from Alan Deshawn and then Peggy Hurd.
Mr. Mayor, Board, I'm not new to Hot Springs, but my house at 102 East Lakeland Point, I've lived there since 2017. I've been coming to Hot Springs since I was 5 years old, and I love Hot Springs. I love the people here at Hot Springs, and I love this lake. 4 years old, I learned how to ski out there. But I'm concerned about my home and my residency is the fact that where we live, there's one way in and one way out. And just coming here this evening, I took a picture of the guy stopped there on the causeway, and then here comes a boat, a truck pulling a boat, and he almost runs us off the road. And we couldn't get around, we couldn't go anywhere, we couldn't move. And the boat trailer is on our side of the road because there's no space. A big motorhome trying to make that turn there by the marina, it's hard for people just in cars to make that turn, much less trying to do that and pulling a lone trailer in a large motorhome. And on the weekends, with the boat traffic and the launching of boats, you have constantly people backing in, pulling into the street, trying to unload their boats, pull their trailer out, back their trailers back in. And almost all of us out here have had almost an incident with somebody just pulling a boat and a trailer, much less a 40-foot motorhome pulling a long trailer. To make that turn is impossible to do with a vehicle that size and length without crossing over the lane. It's impossible to do it. I vote no, and I believe that it's the right thing to do that to protect our neighborhood for the safety of our people there. Thank you.
Thank you. Peggy, I want to say Heard, H-E-I-R-D?
She's not speaking.
Okay, she's not speaking. Thank you. And Teresa, and I'm going to, your husband spoke earlier, I believe. So, awesome.
And everyone, so many have been so eloquent, and I'm going to try to speak in bullet points to get finished with this, but also it's just easier to do, maybe easier to
Restate your
understand.
name, address,
Okay.
please.
My name is Teresa Awesome. We live at 124 Parkwood. We have had our residence for 30 years. My husband said we own 122 Parkwood. It makes it sound like we have two houses, but actually it's a converted workshop. So it's there and enjoyed by my family. We have been here the 30 years, and our families have come from Texas, from Missouri, and all around, and this is a really special place to them, and I want to keep it that way. The thing about Lakeland and our area is not just that it's individual homes and individual homes that we love. It is a community. And we look out after each other, we celebrate with each other, we mourn with each other, and it needs to be filled with people that appreciate it as a neighborhood rather than a place to park an RV vehicle. One of the concerns has also been stated about the fishermen, but these are fishermen, these are women, these are children. They are coming from other parts of our community, and they sit on that spillway and talk to each other, and they're part of our community too. Even though they don't live there, we have an affection for them, and they are ours. And we're concerned for their safety, because they'll potentially be in the hands of strangers. These people and we will be in strangers pulling RVs and boats and cars, strangers that don't know to watch out for these fishermen or the people over at the marina. This will be a strange area to them. Strangers who are distracted by everything that's going on in and out of the marina. It is a busy, busy corner as you're coming across that causeway, with the people fishing, the motorists backing in and out, now people going in for food and gas, and there's just a whole lot going on for people that are not familiar with the area and really don't take any ownership of that. I understand that it sounds like that the effort is to clean up the bad element, and that is very worthy, but I just have a difficult time imagining that space being anything other than what it is, regardless of what the intent is. Because once someone comes on, is there any mechanism to get them to leave? One of my dear friends who lives, their home is in Heber Springs, and they had an RV park that she said quickly turned into a trailer park. And people were in and out, and it was just a different element. I wonder whether the police have means to get in and out of this lock gate. I am concerned that, excuse me, will the fence and the gate be a deterrent? This is already a place where people know to come and buy drugs. If it's just trailer parks, they'll be coming in from the lake, they'll be coming in from every side. And it doesn't have a sense of permanence. It doesn't have anything that makes people feel like, oh, I'm going onto somebody's property. They can go in and out and mill around. Thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate all your consideration and the work that you do.
Thank you.
Very much.
Ms. Carol Bales, please come forward, restate your name, address, and district, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, city directors, and city officials. Thank you for your time tonight. I'm Carol Bales. My husband and I own a home at 304 Yorkshire Drive. We also have a second home at 710 Lakeland Drive that my parents reside in. So we own 2 properties in this neighborhood. Per the City of Hot Springs Planning and Zoning, the definition of RL, Lakes Area Residential, is as follows. Quote, "This district is established to preserve more leisure-type living associated with the residential area in proximity to the lake, to afford protection from intrusive commercial and industrial activities," end quote. Keywords: preserve more leisure-type living, residential area, and the key one, afford protection from intrusive commercial and industrial activities. This definition of RL zoning, by its own words, is the complete opposite of what this RV park will provide. Please keep our residential neighborhood residential. I implore you to please adopt a new zoning policy for RV parks and be able to have specific zoning ordinances for how they interact in the city and against residential properties. We would all agree that the previous use was not good and all would like a better environment. However, the proposed RV park will not provide that. The owner has the ability to turn this property back into a prideful and beautiful area of homes and eliminate slums and blights, as has been in the past, and apparently, per tonight I'm hearing, is currently still in that state. The Shorecrest name could once again become a property to be proud of. It has been around since the 50s. As has been discussed, they plan to scrape the hill if this is approved. That is a beautiful hillside. It is a long hillside along Lakeland Drive. It is not just their 400 feet of property. Cutting down this hill would be a huge detriment to this property and would forever change the landscape of the beautiful area on Lakeland Drive. You will never be able to re-put that back if they take it down. With the number of homeowners in this area versus this one property, we hope that the board can see that our residential area is not the place for a commercial project as proposed. We hope that these points are substantial and will be taken into consideration for your discussion, and we pray that the board of directors will deny this project. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Thank you. This completes the list of those who had signed up. Was there anybody who might have come in late or anybody outside? Okay, I have 2 hands to show up. Sir, will you come forward and feel free to come restate your or state your name, address, and district, please.
Well, I'm the bad guy. I'm Gilbert Garrett. My grandfather, my mother's father, was superintendent of the Park Service during the last Great Depression. His wife was 100% Cherokee. My other grandfather, he was a farmer and a husbandman. My roots run deep in this community. I've generationally been here, and I don't want to do anything bad to this community. My dad was alive when I built Cornerstone, and we thought we were doing something really good for the community. The sales tax when we built Cornerstone was roughly $400 million. After Cornerstone, it became $1.2 billion in sales tax revenue for the city. So I don't have anything bad for the city of Hot Springs. I love Hot Springs, like all of these people do. Y'all all love Hot Springs, don't you? Yeah. You love it. That's the reason we live here. We love it. So when the city employees come to us about the crime rate out at Shorecrest, we tried to get our heads together to devise a way that we could survive that investment in that property out there and do something good for Hot Springs. This is our best effort. We spent real money to get to this point. And y'all are either going to vote for it or you're going to vote against it. And I don't condemn anybody for any vote. I'm going to love you just the same, no matter which way you vote. I appreciate your efforts. I appreciate what you do for Hot Springs. And God knows you guys put up with more crap than I could ever put up with. But you do have some guidelines to go by. I ask you to do the soul searching necessary to come up with the right decision. And I will tell you this, my wife and I, we want something better. We want something much better. We just have to be able to pay our way through this property. And it looks like if you vote for this, we're going to spend about $2 more million on that piece of property. It's going to be done right. We're going to pave with concrete, not asphalt. We're going to widen the street. We're going to put in sidewalks. We're going to do everything that we know to do to make that a premier project. And I hear a lot about cutting down that hill. Anybody that builds over there has to cut that hill down. It can't stay. The city fire marshal will not allow it to stay because it can't have free access to that property when all of the things that could be possible start to happen. They need access to it. That's the reason we cut the hill down. And we didn't just come up with this idea just because we were going to buy the property on the income that it made and be happy with it. But it's hard to be happy with something that's as evil as that place is. There's true evil out there. We're not contriving any of this stuff. All the stuff that we've told you, ask the people next door. They know. If you want to get rid of the blight, this is what we're left with. I mean no harm to any man. I don't have any malice towards the people that live in Hot Springs. I pray that God will guide you, whichever way you decide to vote, to the right conclusion for Hot Springs. I'll figure out a way to do the best I can to get that property paid for. But it's up to you to decide what all of us in this community are going to put up with. And there isn't anybody here that hates drug users, drug sellers, and people that just promote chaos and confusion. And that's what we got a bunch of out there. And it's no excuse that we didn't know that when we bought it. And we are doing the best we can to make changes to rectify what has been going on out there for years and years. And you said you didn't know what happened. We didn't either. We bought it on the income. My wife's not stupid. I might be, but she's not. It was an easy decision for us to buy that. It's not as easy a decision to continue to run it the way it is. We need help to make a better community for our neighbors that live right next to us. Those are the people that I have compassion for. Those are the people that have put up with this crap more than I do. They alone bear that cross. I thank you so much for your time. I appreciate.
You have time for a question, Director
Sure.
Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Garrett. I wanted to ask, was in your RV plan, was the check-in and drop-off at the office behind Lowe's your only
No,
option?
no. We don't think that that's going to happen 1 out of 100 times. We think most of our check-in is going to be over the internet. They'll check in.
Get a code?
And, well, we are going to have somebody out there to meet them. This gentleman, one of you guys, said they ran a Good Sam's. We don't want that problem. We don't want them. We want to be out there to assist them. We'll have people there to help them get pulled in and get acclimated to the area. One thing that hasn't been said is that over half of the RVs are not back in. They're pull through. Now the retaining walls, some of you guys had questions about the retaining wall. There's 2 6-foot tall retaining walls there. And they're bound with fencing so that hopefully nobody falls off of them. But the landscaping requirements, as you guys know, we have to meet points on the landscaping ordinance to make sure that we comply.
Thank
I don't know how my wife's going to do that because she wants to go buy these $3,000 and $4,000 trees to put out there to make it really pretty. But we're going to do the best we can to build a Class A RV park. We're not trying to build a piece of junk out there and we don't have any. We didn't have plans to build an RV park when we bought the property, but we got with the city and with your engineers, and this is what we could come up with that we could comfortably live with to repay the debt.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your
Appreciate you.
time.
Sir, come forward, state your name and address. Thank you, Mr. Garrett.
Yes, sir.
My name is Dr. Tom Harris, and I live at 382 Lakeland. I share the longest contiguous lot line with Shorecrest. I was the proud previous owner of Shorecrest for about 15 years and sold it in 2015. When I bought it in 2003, the appraisal said the best use was to bulldoze it down. And I had B&F Engineering. I was going to put garden homes on 6 acres out there. And everybody has a plan till you get punched in the mouth. In 2008, housing crisis punched me in the mouth. I continued with it and sold it in 2015 to Mr. Tankersley. Now I live next door. I share a football field length. I am in a house at the top of the hill. They're going to cut my hill down about 30 feet and rip-wrap it, and I'm going to look on top of RVs. What you've heard here, I'm a part of this neighborhood. We're part of the neighborhood. But you've also heard the neighbors across the street and next door that have to live with this thing next door. And folks, anything is better than what we've got now. You need to look at the greater good, in my opinion. And these people are my neighbors. They might not like me and everything, but listen to what the immediate neighbors said, you know. We've had RV, I had an RV. I had a 34-foot RV when I moved down there, fifth wheel. I pulled it down there, pulled it on, and parked it on Shorecrest. RV people are generally good people. They're expensive machines, expensive things to pull, you know, and to maintain. They're good people generally. I again say that anything is better than what we've got, and I hope y'all look at the greater good. You can't, not going to make everybody happy, I know that. But thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. This completes the list that I had, both for and against. Also, those who did not have an opportunity to sign up. I will go back to Mr. Montgomery. And Mr. Montgomery, Mr. Phil Montgomery, did you have any closing comments?
We'll let what's been said tonight finish it off. I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you. So that completes the public portion of it. We have discussion amongst directors if if any? Any comments, any discussion amongst directors? Director Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor. As the current director for the city in District 5, all of you in this neighborhood are my constituents, and I love all of you. During the election last year, I tried to contact all of you. And there was some I didn't get in contact with, but I tried to get a note to you. So ever how I vote tonight, somebody's going to be happy and somebody is not going to be happy. And it's all very serious to me. Everyone appears to agree on one thing, that this property is a blight and needs something done. And I agree. I did not know how bad this area was. And Mrs. Garrett and others of you pointed it out. And then I investigated and went to see some things for myself. And it needs something done. It needs improvement. We need safety. Public safety is incredibly important to everyone. Some agree this request before us tonight is the solution. Many agree that this plan is the wrong solution, but would make it much better than it is currently, but is not the right solution. It's clear to me that this issue is divisive among different residents. This property was annexed into the city, and that was a few years ago, along with all of the residential neighborhood there. Since this area has been annexed to the city's planning area, if you review our building permits, it reflects a number of new construction permits, and there are some homes currently under construction. Being in the city has attracted more of residential homes and second homes. I have heard from non-residents that have bought homes there and they use as their second home, but plan to retire here and live full-time in Hot Springs, and some in the near future. Feedback from residents since annexation has been very positive. You and others have commented that they have wanted to be in the city. They wanted the protection of zoning codes. They wanted not just the amenities, but they choose life with the structure and ordinance as well as the amenities in the city. And when this area was annexed into the city, all of these streets are not in compliance with our current city code, and that was known. This was an unincorporated area and did not have the structure that we have in street paving or the size streets, and we knew when we annexed, but we have been able with our street paving program to add streets in this neighborhood to our street paving program, and we hope that all of them in our next 5-year program to spend the additional road tax money for the paving projects to get all of our streets paved and improved. The property at Shorecrest, when we had annexation, did not actually fit in to our zones. And I suspect that the planning department recommended the PD code for the fact that if there ever was any type of change to what it was, it would have to come before the Planning Commission and the board. This is legislative. It requires a board approval. And I suspect that may have been a good reason they recommended the PD zone. But I also suspect if Shorecrest wasn't in existence at that time, it would not have been approved for the type of business that Shorecrest is, or was and is. I look at everything and it looks like it would have come in at RL also. But if we were asked to change property from RL to a PD today for a RV park, I don't know if that would come through approval. Section 16.233 of our Code of Own Annexed Property states the case of conflict between these regulations in force in the planning area, if there is a case of any conflict, the more restrictive standard shall apply. Well, what does all of that mean? The attorney mentioned in the beginning that the code says we need extensive analysis. I don't know if I can't call this meeting being extensive analysis, one meeting by the Planning Commission, and where there were a couple of people from the minutes there, the video, that didn't even know where this property was located and actually thought it was somewhere else. So we're being asked to change a PD, and it's a totally different purpose and a change that was not included in what was annexed to the city. But we're also asked to approve a site plan for use of RV park. I have attempted to find out as much as I can about RV parks from our other cities, and I believe in property rights as long as they don't infringe on somebody else's rights and also comply with all of the city codes and regulations. I feel I take responsibility as a member of the board for not having any regulations in our code for our planning department, for our planning commission, for our engineers, for our department heads regarding RV parks. Since 2010, I recall 3 requests coming before the board regarding RV parks, but this is the first time in a residential area. And I believe I have shortchanged you for not getting one. But with the what I know and what I know isn't popular with everyone, I cannot approve this request as it is, and I greatly request for our board to look at adopting a RV standard code for all of the planning, the staff, the planning commission, and the board, because without it, we don't have objective standards to go by, and it's not fair to not have the same set of standards for everybody with the same type of request, in my opinion. And that again is my opinion, but when we've had these type of issues and it requires adoption of this type of entity that impacts code or adopting ordinances, we usually have work sessions and go through this in depth in addition to our meeting. At an agenda meeting, we do not discuss in depth the items on our current new business agenda. So this is the only opportunity we have to ask these plan questions, technical questions. And I'm sorry if to B&F Engineering, I have printed out the plan, and I asked questions because I couldn't read it or I didn't see, and I have concerns about all the safety requirements that we should consider in any plan. This has nothing to do with the people applying or people opposing or where it's at. I think wherever it's at, we need to have those safety questions answered and included in our code. It has been identified, the attorney beginning off for the applicant said these are dilapidated buildings. If they, regardless of the purpose they use for, I believe if they need to be in compliance for whatever purpose it's going to be used for. And I will have to vote no. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other directors with a comment? Director Holliday?
Thank you. This is actually, it'll actually address a few of the things that Director Garcia came up. So one thing, I haven't been here when RV parks have come up, but in the table of permitted uses, there's only one place where it's allowed conditionally, which is lake residential, which is what, like you said, if this wasn't already a PD, it most likely would have come in either as R1 or, as Director Selman said, it would have become lake residential, in which case it would be able to be considered as a conditional use, which says to me that when the code has been amended and drafted, that adjacent to residential lake property, it is considered at times an appropriate location, and that's what we're looking at. So that's sort of my opinion as far as the zoning is concerned. I don't disagree that maybe we need to look at RV parks and even campgrounds, the fact that it's only this one little conditional use, making sure that we don't get put in positions in the future where it is so subjective. But that is precisely why we have a consultant doing the code. But at the moment, the code does not exist. I find it highly inappropriate to impose a potential code on an applicant, which I think is what is being implied at the moment. Several of the emails and individuals who spoke are imploring us to look at RV park codes. Regardless of whether or not we do that in the future, stopping this process so that we can take our time to do that, I find to be very inappropriate to an applicant. It seems to me that they've done their due diligence with respect to the processes that we have codified. I do agree with the gentleman who spoke, who's the owner, that I appreciate that he took responsibility for not knowing what's going on there and taking that into consideration in advance of purchasing it, but they didn't. There are plenty of issues. We got it in our email. If the immediate neighbors find this to be a solution, I do take that very seriously. As the director in District 1, I fully understand what reputation means when it comes to criminal activity. I have so many people in my district who have spent a lot of time and money doing their best, and you look at the property and it's amazing, but because it's still adjacent to a location with a history, it continues to happen. And this is such a vast departure from what the property has been. I agree that this may be an opportunity to change that behavior. I'm not an RV person, but I don't see big expensive RV owners being part of the problem. I could be wrong, that remains to be seen. With respect to the streets, I took a look at the aerial view of the entire area, the Lakeland area. and being concerned about tight corners. Yes, the Lakeland curve is tight, and yes, the causeway is tight. But in that particular peninsula, I counted over 20 large docks and over 120 small docks. Those are all boats that at some point will come in and out, that will navigate curves that are much tighter than this. And it sounds as though that is happening well. The last gentleman that spoke said he took a 30-plus foot trailer in and out. I do think with respect to the causeway, I too have traveled over that. It's tight and it's scary, but I think that's something that we as a city need to take into consideration. If for whatever reason, people, including children, are encouraged to stand adjacent to a highly trafficked area and a guardrail to go fishing, perhaps we need to look at something there to protect the pedestrians. Again, that is not the onus of this applicant or any other person who has developed property there. That's perhaps a safety issue that we need to look at. You know, I do feel that this is something that, particularly considering what it is an improvement. Personally, I agree taking down the hill kind of hurts my feelings. I don't like doing that. I don't like the idea of trees being gone. But I also absolutely trust our staff and our fire department when it comes to what it is that they're going to need to be able to respond. And if that's part of that conversation, then you know, my personal opinion about whether or not there's a pretty green hill has to step aside so that the fire department can do what they need to do. So that's my 2 cents. I will be voting in favor of this.
May I make a clarification?
Short one?
Yes, I just wanted to remind the director that year before last, we approved RV park out of East Grand. I don't know if that's in either District 1 or 2, I believe, but we had that approval. And the number of docks, I've been on every street by every resident out there. Most of those docks that you were referring to are at personal residences, and they don't go up and down the street with their boats. They have lifts and take them up out of the water and winterize them.
Any other director have comments on this matter? Director Webb?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll keep my part short, to the point, but I do want to express thanks to everybody that spoke here tonight. I can tell from your testimony that you care about our city, you care about your neighborhood, regardless of what side you're on. Being here tonight is a step that shows your love for Hot Springs, so I admire you for speaking. I also want to applaud you, Mr. and Mrs. Garrett, for taking steps and seeking a solution for your property. For me, in matters of this nature, I pay attention to the policy and I pay attention to the people. Any development that has an overwhelming support from its neighborhood checks off all the boxes for existing city ordinances as it relates to policy will get my support. Because A, it's an asset for our city of Hot Springs, and B, it will have a positive impact on our neighborhoods. In reading Ordinance 16-2-47, again, and in looking at the review process, there are 6 steps that have to be reviewed. And I question 4 of those steps as it relates to this RV proposal. Number 1, I question number 2, not create undue or unmitigate negative traffic impacts. I question number 3, be compatible with surrounding developments. I question number 5, not endanger the public health, welfare, or safety, nor shall it substantially diminish or impair property values in the neighborhood in which it is located. And I question number 6, be of a character and contain such uses that are needed in the area of the proposed project. For those questions that I have as it relates to the review process for ordinance 16-2-47, I will oppose this RV proposal. Thank you.
Any other comments from directors who haven't spoken? Oh, one.
Yep. Real quick, thank you, Mayor. I do want to add, not just for those reasons will I oppose this RV proposal as it relates to policy, but I look at the number of people who are speaking out against this proposal too, who are citizens and residents of our city. And I pray, regardless of what happens here in our vote in just a few minutes, that Mr. and Mrs. Garrett do find some plausible solution for this property. I just, for one, do not think this is the right solution. And I do also support our initiative, as other directors have pointed out here this evening, that we look at obtaining and developing and implementing appropriate city RV ordinances. Thank you.
Director Trustee, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I too just want to echo thanks to everyone who spoke tonight. I want to thank all those of you who contacted me over the past 10 days, 2 weeks. I've had more communication on this issue than anything else that I've had since I've been on the board the last 2.5 years. And I do appreciate your involvement. Thank you for your commitment to come tonight and sit here till 9:30 and be a part of this process. So I just want to echo my thanks for that. I didn't get back to most of you on the email because I was out of town and on vacation last week. But since I'm retired, it's a vacation every day, I guess. I don't know what to say. But I read everything that came in, and I want you to know that. And some of you contacted me more than once, and I appreciate that too. And I haven't had time since we've been back in town to get back to each of you, but I certainly appreciate your thoughts and your input on this. Thank you.
Very good. Director Beard?
Yes, I want to thank everyone that emailed me and called me while I was driving, trying to save houses. I read all of your emails, or most of all of them, and there were 2 emails that stood out particularly to me, and that was just come out here and see how much room we have to navigate. I moved back home, but I lived on an island where we had 3 bridges to get off and 1 ferry, and any hiccup could happen where there's just no. Well, we had other options, but I'm seeing a hiccup where you all live. You have like this much room for error. Like there's just not a lot of. There's not many places you can go. So I listened to everyone and tried to keep an open mind about both sides. So be well.
Very good. I don't want to call you out, Director Dobbs-Smith, but did you have any comment?
I'm getting ready to toss a coin.
No. Well, I guess I'll make the final closing comment. It's been a long time since I've been out in that area of Lakeland Drive. I had some friends that were there, and I remember when we moved to town, we had some friends, I guess, back up in there, because I remember the little convenience store, a little bit down from the proposed project on the other side of the street, and I guess a restaurant there. This is all really developed. The density out there is just unbelievable. I mean, I drove past the property. The amount of dead end signs that I came across was very concerning. Certainly, if you're driving looking for Shorecrest, I don't think you're going to miss it. But if you do, you got a problem. And certainly the comments related to the causeway and the curve and that is it creates some challenges. This area, when all this development went on, and I guess I would even go back into the 60s or so, and I wasn't here in the 60s, but that was all those little cottages and that was a happening place. I could just see people coming to Hot Springs and renting those and having their little runabout 40 horse ski boats and that. It was really a happening place. And I'm not sure there's an area of town that has more density, population density, than that area. But you are part of the city now. All that, probably 99.9% of all that was built prior to being part of the city. And so now we come with rules and regulations that here before development really didn't come into play. There might have been other entities that came into play, whether it be Entergy or some other entity might come into play, but it wasn't the city of Hot Springs really. So we are challenged, and as Director Garcia said, trying to sometimes catching up in regulations and trying to be ahead of the curve. We're not always ahead of the curve on new ideas and new development. So good, bad, or indifferent, right now today we're in the city and we're subject to the rules that we have. So I am really challenged with this project. The Garretts have developed so much in this town with Cornerstone, in that I cannot put myself in their place as to what is the highest and best use of this property. That's not where I have any expertise. Probably not what I would do with the property, but I can't put myself in their place. But at the same time, there's some significant challenges here that I have with that project. So, okay, we're all ready to vote. Please call the roll.
Director Webb.
No.
Garcia.
No.
Trustee.
No.
Holliday.
Aye.
Beard.
No.
Dobbs Smith.
No.
Mayor McCabe.
No. Ordinance fails. That concludes the action items for tonight's meeting. We do have Board of Directors items for discussion. Do the directors have any items for discussion? Director.
I just want to publicly recognize your hotel for the...
Wait, if you're going to, let's pause for a moment, let everybody get out.
Yeah, you want to hear that?
Yeah. We still have some board activity, so if you could exit quietly, we'd be most appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you for everything you all did.
Director Garcia, you had something
Yes.
important to say?
Yes, it's very important, Mayor. I just wanted to publicly acknowledge all of your kudos and all of the great recognition, well-deserved, that your hotel is receiving. There's been, in the past week, several publications for many different reasons. And I believe the latest one was for the eclipse next year. You're the star hotel for that, and one of the best places to stay, boutique hotels in Arkansas, not just Hot Springs. So we were with you in that journey when it began in the years in getting approval. And it is great for Hot Springs and all that has been done since then. So well done.
Well, thank you. I know Ellen appreciates that as well. Just a side note, City of Hot Springs and business downtown is robust. And, I always say it's kind of hard to screw that up as long as you offer a good product and service. So, but thank you very much. Any other items for discussion? Director Webb.
Thank you, Mayor. The item I have for discussion involves the Civil Commission for our City Advisory Board. This is a very important commission that performs various personnel-related functions related to uniformed departments, such as police and fire, to include administration of hiring and promotional testing. Has 5 seats available, and right now only 4 seats are filled. This is all established by H.S.C. and 10-3-1 pursuant to state law. Just due to the serious nature of this commission, it is my stance this evening to just suggest to fellow board members, city manager and the city attorney, that we consider expediting the filling of this 5th seat. If 2 members miss a meeting due to unforeseen reasons, this committee doesn't have quorum and will be delayed in conducting business matters, which could restrict proper oversight of police and fire. If we fill this open seat in a timely manner, it is more likely that the Civil Commission will always meet quorum and be able to function at full capacity. One individual did apply for this commission earlier this year when appointments were being decided. I don't recall why he wasn't appointed. And I know of at least 2 other candidates who were not selected for advisory boards that they initially requested to serve on, who have an interest as well to serve on the Civil Service Commission as well. So I want to see this position filled as quickly as we can. I don't know where we are on that, or, I do know, I've heard like it's got to be 6 months, but quite frankly, September is too far away. There are some pressing matters. I know we just had a work session here recently to look at compensation for police pay, and this is probably some area that the Civil Commission will be reviewing, or it could be. I don't know. Okay. Nevertheless, I'd like to see this position filled within 30 days and would entertain any discussion on steps to fulfill this request or any relatable ideas.
Well, the process would be open up the applications. You could do that for as short a period of time as, say, 2 weeks. Get those names before the board at one of your agenda meetings, where you could hold a special called meeting for interviews, executive session, make a nomination to get it on the next business meeting. So you could have this done, by the end of June.
Can I take those steps here tonight?
Well, let me ask a question. I mean, we've had a number of boards, commissions, committees that have had open seats, and some of them have been challenged to have meetings and quorum. I'm not familiar that we have that challenge with civil service. Have we not had meetings because of quorum issues?
That has not been an issue.
So I know that we have.
Either of our chiefs still here? Okay.
So I'm not opposed to having a shorter nomination period, or an interim one versus waiting for 6 months, but I don't think it's that commission has had.
Chief, are you aware of any circumstances in the recent past where the Civil Service Commission has failed to have a quorum in order to meet?
No, sir, I'm not.
Yeah. So, thank you. All right. Well, why don't we let Bill and Brian kind of address that, and they can work with you on it. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just saying that I don't think not having a quorum in that commission is an issue. So, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Not to say that there are any quorum problems with this committee, I was just stating too that it runs the potential of that. And if we have, 2 to 3 citizens of Hot Springs who are willing to serve their city, why not make that opportunity available, especially if those 3 have an interest in civil service? So I would like to hear, city manager and city attorney's direction, as you were stating, Mayor, as to what we can do moving forward to expedite that process.
We can certainly look at that. I mean, we typically follow the code, and, the code kind of sets out when you have those application periods open. It's, we have a process, but we can certainly, get together and try to come up with something for the board to put that out. I'd keep it out for at least a month before you convene and have interviews.
Excuse me, Director Garcia, I would comment in this regard, I suppose, if you had a resignation, you now have a vacancy. You're not in a cycle of applying, you have a vacancy to fill. So I would say let's get this to the board.
Okay, Director Garcia, did you have a?
I was just going to say, if we had any other vacancies, the Planning Commission is important, as well as all of our advisory committees. We value all of the volunteers' time. But one of the reasons they were in the spring and fall was because of the vacations. Everybody's not retired that takes a vacation every day. And so that we would have the most people available at our meetings to interview applicants, we want to make sure we're not doing it at a time that our board we wouldn't have all our people to be able to be involved.
Okay,
whatever
thank you.
is decided, but if we're doing one, I don't know why we wouldn't do others. Because we've had other resignations. You're setting a precedent. Are you going to do that every time there's a resignation? We've held them open until we took the applications at the regular time, because I've had people ask before, and we've given them that response. So if we're going to set a new precedent, are we always going to override our code?
I don't know that we've done that on commissions. Advisory committees are totally different animal.
We've had resignations and openings in the A&P Commission that stayed vacant until their time.
We don't make those nominations, they do.
I know, but that's a commission.
Oh, okay, it's an exception to my point. They make those nominations. The Planning Commission, we have alternates for that very reason.
Well, maybe we need alternates on
For
some.
civil service, maybe we need civil service alternates.
I also don't disagree with the occasional interim. We did do that with CDAC, but that's because applications were in and District 1 is a target district and it was open. If memory serves, I think when I went into the Planning Commission, it was mid-session because we had someone who passed away suddenly and there were decisions to be made, and I don't know if I'm in favor of alternates for civil service. I also agree with, I don't know who said it, staying out for a month. I wouldn't want that application period to be small. I want to make sure if there's anybody else out there who has ever thought of it, that they can see it. Just because we have some people who didn't make it on another commission that we can laterally move over, they may not be the best. And this is one that I know we've often struggled with, and we have chosen to keep a seat vacant as opposed to putting the wrong person in. The risk of not having a quorum is a smaller risk than having someone who is not well suited to that particular position. So, if we want to do it this summer, I'm not opposed to that, but I would rather have a wider application period, not just a couple weeks.
But I think that's something for a work session, not tonight.
Correct.
Okay, work session. I don't have anything to add. It's 9:45, so I think this issue could be maybe discussed during a work session.
Okay.
I have a small item for discussion. I'm going to highly recommend, if you did not get to go to the AML planning workshop, they have an after-the-fact virtual one that is open until May 24th. So if anyone on this board has not had any planning training, I highly recommend you at least do that virtual training.
Very good.
That AML planning training, the ABCs of planning, zoning, all things.
RV parks?
And it does give you CE credit, by the way. So
Oh. Director Trustee.
Last item, Mayor, I probably missed it on the Board of Directors announcements regarding upcoming events, but I'll make it very quick here. The NCAA Beach Volleyball Championships are coming up this weekend in Gulf Shores, Alabama. And there's a young lady from Hot Springs who's on the official roster for the Florida State Seminoles. So her last name's Trusty, and it's just a coincidence, I guess. But I think the family's going down to watch. So.
Very nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we do have a public comment session immediately following this, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mayor.
Director Trustee, seconded by.
I found out last time I could
need
do
a
that.
second by Director Webb. Director Garcia did? Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We do have one public information speaker.